I am O Speaks. If you're new here, like, subscribe, share. Had some technical difficulties. I had this scheduled and then had to, I don't know what happened. StreamYard created like 4 or 5 streams. I couldn't figure out which one was the right one. I did not want to have 5 broadcasts out there on YouTube or Rumble or Twitch. Those are the platforms we're on right now. So I shut it down, figured it out. Wife helped me figure it out, and I think we're good. Pretty sure we're so today's show. I have, let's see, let me close this out. I don't want any YouTube windows open. I don't want any nonsense going on. All right, so my thumbnail is Charlie Kirk's unwavering support was imminent. The reason why I threw that out there, let's look up the word imminent, shall we? Because it seems like the administration, the Trump administration, where is it? Imminent. There it is. It seems like they're trying to redefine what imminent means. I like the word imminent. I don't think we should be changing definitions. Not now. It doesn't really make much sense to me. So what is imminent? Let's pull that up. All right. So imminent, where is it? The meaning of it is ready to take place, happening soon. Often used of something bad or dangerous seen as menacingly near. They seem to now be saying imminent isn't urgent anymore, and that Trump can determine what is imminent. And I kind of agree when it comes to his decision making, but it is weird to say that, well, he said imminent, but we didn't mean imminent. We kind of meant imminent instead of imminent. Not fast, just eventual. And that's not the same thing. So when you start talking war, we start having an issue, and the issue is you're claiming that something was going to happen. Show me. And then when it comes time to show me, you say, well, they weren't immediately going to do it, but eventually they were going to go ahead and attack us. And that's not the same thing. Clearly, that's not the same thing. So we're going to start right away because I got a lot to cover here. And we're going to pull up our video for today, my presentation for the day. And let's watch, and I will give my commentary. I spent a lot of time putting this one together. Pull it up.
Everybody, you're about to watch a discussion with several Turning Point USA chapter leaders from across the country. It is a spirited discussion about Israel, about AIPAC, a little about immigration. This is what's called a focus group. This is about getting down to what the consensus of this generation is, or not what you see on X. These are real people, they're real conservatives, many of which are real Christians, and they'll tell you exactly what they think about the hottest issue happening, I guess, on the planet that we're talking about. Watch this, learn, and if you get a little fired up, watch to the end, because I think you're going to love every minute of it.
Before this starts, this was right before Charlie passed. A few months ago. I don't know exactly how long ago this was. Maybe 2 months. This was around the time of the other Iran situation. And we're kind of going to do a timeline on Charlie Kirk and his attitude toward Israel. And it's not, that he had an issue with the state of Israel or even necessarily what they're doing. It was the government and how they were behaving, and then how people were treating people who disagreed. He had a big problem with that. When he passed away, they tried to erase that. And it was really, really weird because they're trying to say, no, he had unwavering support. That's why I put what I put in my title. That's why I put what I put on my thumbnail. It wasn't unwavering. Nothing is unwavering. He had his critiques. He thought people should be allowed to critique. And this focus group is so interesting because you're going to hear his real feelings. And he's going to say, I've been trying to tell him this. I've been trying to tell him that. It's good. This is really, really good. And I think this is worth watching. So that's what we're going to start out today with.
We're going to play a word association test. What's the first word that comes to mind when you hear Israel?
Judaism.
Aid.
Netanyahu.
Tax dollars.
Liability.
Sacred.
Tax dollars.
Conflict.
Complex.
Controversial. Scary.
Strategic.
Mossad. So Mossad, of all the different things that would come to mind, why does their intelligence service come to mind?
Reminds me of the CIA.
You know, it has the CIA, you have the CIA involved with RFK. I mean, there's rumors going around, maybe Mossad was a part of the Epstein files, maybe Mossad was a part of things that we don't know about. And they're just like the Central Intelligence Agency, they are out there doing things that none of us know about.
So to say Mossad first, that would basically imply your first impression is one of doubt. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay.
When you hear like Epstein, right, do you connect the Epstein issue initially, like immediate, like first connection in your mind, that's also connected to Mossad and Israel, or are they feel separate in your mind?
I think there's a growing consensus that there's a connection there among Gen Z.
Yeah, I think that's definitely gaining velocity. Who used the word aid? You did. Why did that come to mind first?
It's very similar to our support for Ukraine. We're sending a lot of money over there, not really getting, in my opinion, a huge return on investment. And so that's like the first thing that comes to mind, because when people talk about their distrust or dissupport for Israel, that's the first thing that usually comes up is all the money that we're sending them.
I think we have a lot bigger issues at home. I think we should be spending most of our tax dollars on securing our border, keeping our home people safe, rather than, I mean, we've seen illegal immigration that Joe Biden let through our southern border come in, and we've seen thousands of Americans die because of it. I think we have a much bigger problem on the home front rather than sending money to foreign countries.
I think it's critical that we remain friends with them. They remain our ally. I just don't think we should be subsidizing them as much as we are.
When you talk about return on investment, I think that's an interesting way to frame it. The supporters of Israel will say they're doing a lot of America's dirty work, from intelligence gathering, things like that. Within the Middle East, is that compelling to you? Are you...
Things like that is funny because they never say what the things like that are. It's always intelligence gathering. Problem is, it's always, I won't say always, it seems to be that the intelligence gathering is self-serving for Israel. We don't get any information on things external, South America. We don't get anything on Africa unless it directly impacts Israel. We don't get the intelligence. So they always frame it that way, and they sneak it in like that. You know, they're our closest ally, and they provide, you know, really valuable intel and other things. What are the other things? It's all about a self-serving interest, and I don't have a problem with that, but I think we should be the same way.
Persuaded by that argument?
The reason why I'm not super persuaded is it's mostly because of here recently, we were kind of drug into it. We were negotiating, we were having negotiations, and then they killed the people we were negotiating with, and it kind of derailed everything and sped up the conflict a little bit.
It was the State Department's stated goal that we were working on negotiations with Iran. You can say they wouldn't have panned out. You can say that maybe they were imminently about to collapse, but we were still in active negotiation, and yet Israel launches Operation Rising Lion to go in and strike Iran while we're mid-negotiation.
How many of you guys would say you think Israel got us into that conflict? You would say yes? You would not say so much?
I think we were willing to join that conflict. I don't think we were pulled in unwantingly as if we were dragged by a leash, in more uncertain terms. I think we have the authority and the say of whether or not we want to be involved in that conflict. And I think we saw the prosperity that we would unleash if we joined the conflict.
When you think about Israel's history in the region, and even with Hamas or Iran, these nations have sworn to destroy and annihilate the nation of Israel, right? At what point does it become, given the context, at what point are you going to be okay, or would you never be okay with the U.S. defending Israel's right to exist and essentially saving the country?
I think they absolutely, first and foremost, they have a right to exist. They have a right to defend themselves. That's not my issue with it. I can kind of give an analogy is that our house is burning down, and so is our neighbors, and we're trying to put their fire out before we put ours out. That's kind of how I view it.
So when you guys find out, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but when you find out that we're basically every year we send about almost $4 billion to Israel, does that make you upset, or do you understand it given that they're under sort of crisis ongoing?
I would say upset, and the amount since 1948, it amounts to 319 billion adjusted to inflation. And I'd say that I can think of multiple things that we could have spent at home that would have been a better allocation of our taxpayer dollars. And I feel like this money could have been well spent in supporting an economy that would support our generation being able to afford homes rather than military strikes for Israel.
What else?
What's really interesting about this is I'm older than all these kids. They're all young enough to be my kids. And why is it that I have my finger on this pulse, but our officials don't? Because this is everything I've been saying since my channel started. And it's not fully isolationist. We understand. And now I'm, I guess, attaching to these kids because I agree with them on most. I don't know about the right to exist thing. That's a weird, that phrasing is very strange. How you doing, Embassy? What's up, bad guy? But if they're attacked, I don't have an issue with mediating. But this whole thing where they have a right to exist, I don't understand. I don't know what that means. Like everyone has a right to exist. Why is it stressed when it comes to this one country? Because we don't say that everywhere. When two other countries are at war, we don't say, well, this one has a right to exist. It's a very strange phrasing. And I wonder if that phrasing was tested or polled or a focus group just on that phrase, because I don't know what that means. Like who doesn't have a right to exist? Is that saying we have to defend them and force the right to exist? I don't understand that language. It's very strange to me. And the more I hear it, the more weird it sounds. Because that's like saying, you know, they have a right to exist by any means necessary. Because it does not compute. What does that mean? They have a right to defend themselves, absolutely. But a right to exist is a weird way to say that.
What would you want to see from their government? If their government came out and said, we have a 5-year plan to decouple from US aid, would that help people's view of Israel? If they said, hey, we want to be self-reliant.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you think that would help?
Yes.
If they're like, thank you for the help since 1948. We're a rich country. We've balanced our budget. We have money in our sovereign wealth fund, which they actually do. Thank you.
Hear what he said? So they have a surplus. We don't. We're almost $40 trillion in debt. Why is this perpetual? Why do we have to keep doing this? Why is this forever? And not only is it forever, they act as if it's owed. This is really similar to Ukraine. Now, it's not the same thing. But when somebody expects that you got their back, it's different than when they're thankful that you have their back. And when I see all of these reports that, I don't want to say we were tricked into war, because we want similar results to what they want. But it feels like we were manipulated, and I don't like that, especially from somebody who's my dependent. My kids can't manipulate me. There's a problem if they do. There's going to be consequences. And here we are looking at a nation that is in surplus now. But that's because of us. So how about we stop dragging us into these wars? And I understand it's our leaders, because Israel is doing what they're supposed to do. They're in it for survival. I get that. I really do. I don't want people to think I'm just bashing them and I don't like that. They have a right to defend themselves. Nobody has a right to exist. It's strange. It's very strange verbiage.
We're now going to decouple over the next 5 years and basically transition. Do you think that people would think higher of Israel? At least we stop talking about it so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Would you put that like as a primary?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say like that can kind of follow up with a lot of other things, like a lot of other like even European nations. Like I feel like they were kind of like, even Trump had to like kind of even out NATO so that everyone was kind of paying the same, not the same amount, obviously, 5%. Yeah. But it just because like nobody wants a lot of Americans do not want people freeloading off the United States.
And as you said, 319 billion being sent to Israel over all these years, that's comparable to the amount we've sent to Ukraine. And there's been a lot of controversy over that, and yet not as much over Israel. And people are judged very heavily if they critique that aid that is given to Israel. I think I'm pro-Israel. I support them. I believe Israel has a right to exist. I believe that they are the only state in that region with the right to exist. But why are we treating them differently than any other ally?
So even though I agree with overall what he's saying, why would he say they're the only ones with a right to exist? That's supremacy talk. I don't understand that. So whether you like Iran, whether you are Muslim, no matter what you are, to say that Iran does not have a right to exist, but Israel does, what are you saying? Are they lesser human beings? Is it a lesser nation? I don't understand. I really genuinely, I need somebody to fully explain that to me. I really do. And if anybody wants to come up and explain that to me, I'm all in. I need to hear this. What does that mean?
Should we not be judging them, holding them to the same standard?
Your view is articulated by a lot of young people and held by a lot of young people, because let's now take a step back and let's now broaden it. How many of you guys think when a lawmaker, and a man I respect like Ted Cruz, uses the Bible to justify aid to Israel, doesn't even know the verse, do you guys think that's like not the best way to approach this? Raise your hand. Okay.
I think Ted Cruz used Genesis 12:3. I think a lot of people see that as off-putting when you look at the New Testament.
Why?
Because I think a lot of people, they look especially at the writings of Paul, where he talks about how the new flesh is not the same as the people in the old covenant. The new flesh is everybody, everyone's included.
Talking about Romans 9.
Yes, 9:6, yeah.
Are you Catholic?
Converting Catholic from
Yeah, I can
Judaism.
tell.
This is my next
Oh,
slide.
from Judaism?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So you're you're ethnically Jewish.
Ethnically Jewish, yes.
And you have concerns about AIPAC.
Yes, I do.
I'm told that by some people that if I criticize AIPAC, I'm anti-Semitic.
I think it's ridiculous. Yeah. I feel like it's great to have a concern for your country.
Do you think that that AIPAC represents, again, I'm not saying I believe this, but I think this is what you're saying, that it represents a kind of cutting in line of prioritization away from the American people?
Yes.
Would you guys say that's a fair summary? Meaning that, like, okay, we vote, we're citizens, but a separate group gets higher priority because of whatever reasons. You look like you want to chime in.
That the entirety of the idea of a PAC is to represent a group, but the fact that we're allowing a group that doesn't even represent American interests to influence the people who are supposed to be representing us, I have a huge problem with. And that's why I've said this before, and a lot of people don't like when I say it. I actually think there's probably like 20 representatives between Senate and House who I think are actually fully doing the work of the American people and don't have the interests of some group pulling their sway.
But when you hear that lots of other countries also are lobbying, do you think, I mean, that you probably don't know the names of those countries, but it's happening. Does that upset you equally, or is AIPAC just get all the press because it's so top of mind?
If those other ones are doing the same thing, of course. I do not think that other countries should be telling us how to spend, telling our representatives and people who are here to represent all of us that they should be focusing outside of the United States. America first. Thank you.
I find prophecy as policy generally to be theologically problematic. I mean, there's plenty of things that the Bible says that have been done throughout parts of history that certainly a nation state doing today we would see as a bit of a problem. When it comes to sending these, what, you said $300 billion
19, yeah, just with inflation, yeah.
to any
That's
foreign
crazy.
country, all I can think about is across our own southern border, we have an actual military in the form of the cartel that kill thousands of people, and that's leaving out the hundreds of thousands of Americans that have died to drug overdoses due to drugs that have come across our southern border. And it's insulting that that money goes anywhere else because we have such a huge problem here.
Yeah, I want to kind of flip this word association game around just slightly because we haven't done it yet. When I bring up Gaza, Gazans, Hamas, let's just keep Hamas out of it. Gaza and Gazans. What comes to mind?
Complicated.
Life. Destruction.
I'd say differences.
Perish.
Perish. What is the impression that you guys have of what's been happening in Gaza? It doesn't have to be a singular word.
I would say like a severe loss of life. I feel like that's always a bad thing, no matter which way you look at it, no matter who's, basically no matter who's dying, it's never really a good thing.
And you said perish. So would you say that on social media you see a lot of maybe kids dying or death and destruction? Is that getting fed into your algorithms a lot?
Yes, and actually on our school's campus, they'll have these little missing kid posters, and in those posters, they'll read about these kids who have died. They try to have us to have more sympathy for them. And it's like, at the end of the day, as you had mentioned, they are humans. We already have sympathy for them.
So on campus, now let's do something we haven't done. Has there been any awareness for the Israeli hostages? Is that?
No.
I think that's also important to talk about, right? I mean,
or the 1,200 plus that were massacred that day.
Yeah, nearly 1,300. So that's a factor because I think we need to have a balanced conversation about it.
Word association game. One issue you wish we were focused on instead of Israel, what would it be?
I've got to say, continue on the border.
Border.
Deportations. Housing. Families.
How many of you guys at least get the impression that Israel matters more than having young people be able to own homes? Raise your hand.
It's divide and conquer. We can do a lot of things. This is why there's so many cabinet secretaries. This is why we have a government that can do a lot of things, is because we can focus on foreign stuff and we can also focus on domestic stuff. I personally am pretty all right with a lot of what we have been doing, but I do understand where a lot of Gen Z is coming from with a lot of this because, like I said, we can't buy homes. We can't afford anything. We can't really afford anything. So
do you guys?
And I want to stop and say something really quick because Colvette added in, that there was 12,000. It may have, or 1,200. It may have been Kirk. One of them jumped in and said, well, what about the Israeli children? And then there were 1,200 people killed. If you look, I just looked it up right now. As of early 2026, the death toll in Gaza exceeds 72,000. That's not, I don't see that as justifiable. I don't see that as justifiable. And you can agree, you can disagree. It doesn't really matter. When it's that disproportionate and we're looking at these numbers, yes, it was horrific. Same thing with 9/11. It was horrific. 3,000 people died. I don't think you can justify when you're up in the 70, 80, 90, 100,000 of their people dying and those people are still in power. Like, okay, so what is the end game here? Because you didn't strip anybody of their authority or their power, but 72,000 people died. And this is just, this is recorded deaths. I just Googled it. I didn't go and usually I'll multi-tier look up stuff, because Google will give you a little bit different results than Grok. And, we'll just say that number's on a low end or high end. I don't care. My point is that justified when you're talking 1,200? Especially when it was a government security failure that resulted in that.
See Jew hate increasing amongst your generation?
I think that there's a lot of collusion between criticism and hate. I think that there is legitimate hate out there, but a lot of criticism is being framed as hatred, or you don't support this because you're criticizing it. And that's like, I think that that's a little inseparable from what the left
do you guys
does.
think it's anti-Semitic to say you don't like Bibi Netanyahu?
No.
No.
I don't believe so.
There is a rise of Jew hate, but it's not the majority mover. I think the majority mover of Gen Z and Gen Z conservatives is exhaustion.
Precisely.
Would you guys think that's a fair categorization? Yes. I mean, again, there is like an isolated like weirdo, I hate Jews. We don't like that. No one in decent society wants that. But instead, it's kind of like, can we just, I don't know, make it so I can buy a home? Or like deport people?
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you?
Oh yeah. Exactly.
You're not anti-Israel. You don't wish them harm. You're not, like cheering on Iran.
No, I support Israel. I think they're our ally. I want them.
But you would be called an anti-Semite by some people for saying this.
And I think that's ridiculous. I don't hate Jews because I think a nation should defend themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, I think that's the most ridiculous thing ever.
I feel like it's becoming like the word racism. Like we just disagree with them, so we just have to call them a name. I don't think they're actually anti-Semitic. I think people just can't agree with them and they can't prove them wrong, so they just throw a word out and be like, "You're anti-Semitic because you think that we should stop sending our money there."
Something that I see amongst the people I'm around, I do see more like general disdain towards, just being honest, Jewish people.
That's correct.
Just because they're constantly being told that you hate Jews, and it's like, fine. If you're gonna say I hate Jews over and over and over again, like if I'm gonna be convicted of the crime, I might as well do the crime. I fear the same.
Did you see his face? You see Charlie's face? He's looking at Colvette, but Colvette's not paying attention because he's Colvette. But while he's saying this, he looks at him like it's almost an "I told you so" face, because clearly this is his sentiment as well. And those donors that were pressuring Charlie Kirk did not like that he did this focus group. Instead of saying, okay, that this is eye-opening, maybe we should talk about approach, they got mad at him over this. And you'll hear him talk
of race. The more we talk about it, the more we bring it up, the more racism actually happens.
This is like, I try to tell, thank you for saying this. Like, because like, I try to tell these people and they're like, we must get more aggressive. And so like, let me ask a question. If
we must get more aggressive, that's their response to hearing, hey, what you're doing isn't working. You can't call everyone anti-Semite. Our community went through this. The Black community went through this. Everything is not racist. Maybe you got fired because you were bad at your job. Because why would the racists have hired you in the first place? Well, they have to. Affirmative action. Okay, but then it's the justifications, if you go all the way back to the origin of your logic, it will not pan out. There are other possibilities. It could be true. Somebody can be anti-Semitic and be saying something that's just slightly critical of Israel or of their government, Bibi Netanyahu, whatever. Maybe, but there is also I won't say likelihood, the possibility that they just don't like that guy, that one guy. And when you keep throwing out, in our case, racism, in their case, anti-Semite, people get tired of it. They don't want to hear it anymore. And instead of them embracing that thought, especially people like Ben Shapiro, because he pushed it. He's the one who was telling Black people not to do that. And now here he is doing it. It's so interesting. Look at his face.
Or like deport people?
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you?
Oh yeah. Exactly.
You're not anti-Israel. You don't wish them harm. You're not, like cheering on Iran.
No, I support Israel. I think they're our ally. I want them.
But you would be called an anti-Semite by some people for saying this.
I think that's ridiculous. I don't hate Jews because I think a nation should defend themselves.
Exactly.
Like, I think that's the most ridiculous thing ever.
I feel like it's becoming like the word racism. Like we just disagree with them, so we just have to call them a name. I don't think they're actually anti-Semitic. I think people just can't agree with them and they can't prove them wrong, so they just throw a word out and be like, "You're anti-Semitic because you think that we should stop sending our money there."
And it diminishes the actual racists out there or the actual anti-Semites out there, because you're throwing them into this huge category. You're diminishing the word and the meaning of the word. And it's insulting to the people who suffer the real consequences of these behaviors.
That I see amongst the people I'm around, I do see more like general disdain towards, just being honest, Jewish people.
That's correct.
Just because they're constantly being told that you hate Jews. And
Look
it's
at
like,
Charlie's
fine,
face.
if you're going to say I hate Jews over and over and over again, like, if I'm going to be convicted of the crime, I might as well do the crime. I fear the same thing happens with all the talk of race. The more we talk about it, the more we bring it up, the more racism actually happens.
This is like, I try to tell, thank you for saying this, like, because like, I try to tell these people and they're like, we must get more aggressive. And so like, let me ask a question.
That's what
If
we're
we were to
saying
say,
now.
if we were to remove, like if people said what Tucker said is anti-Semitic, I don't hold that view, but it's like a lot of people on Twitter are like calling us out and like, whatever, that's not gonna happen. But if we were to cancel Tucker, would anti-Semitism increase or decrease?
I think increase, because that means any supporter of Tucker Carlson's statement therefore makes them anti-Semites.
Guilt and association, 100%.
Exactly.
But the binary that's presented is that if you don't passionately talk about it, you are a hater. That's probably destructive for everybody involved. So for me, I'm trying to find this new path, which is I love Israel. I visited there. My wife and I had the best experiences ever. I saw where Jesus rose from the dead and he walked on water. But also I'm an American and I represent a generation that can't afford anything and that we are like flooded with illegals and no one speaks English and our hospitals are clogged. I think we need to have the prudence to reject the Jew hate. Like, okay, we're not gonna put up with that, that's dumb. But also, if you call everyone an anti-Semite, if they don't take a puritanical view of the Netanyahu government, then I think it's bad for everybody.
So would you guys all basically safe to say welcome us not talking about Israel nearly as much?
Yes.
100%. Every day.
A trope that is often found in broken institutions. And I found this now over 13 years. It's a great truism you guys can learn for the rest of your life. Anybody that tells you we have a messaging problem, you should go a step deeper and ask another question. Being like, what, are you actually doing something wrong? Or are you bad at messaging it? Because people that are doing bad stuff will sometimes be like, well, we're just not presenting it correctly. Sometimes that's true. Or sometimes there actually might be something beneath the surface that you're not doing. So do you guys think that it's a messaging problem or that it's an actual material concept problem?
It's a values and priorities problem.
Yeah, it's definitely a messaging problem. These politicians, they don't need to be car salesmen. You know, we need the truth, we need the direct truth, and nothing but the truth. But these politicians, they're not truthful. You know, they're digging Gen Z down in the dirt.
Who represents you best outside of Trump? Well, thank you. That's very good.
I don't do that just for the sake of it either. I mean, you're here involving us for a reason because we are the important group. We're going to inherit all of these issues. So
no, again, the reason I'm doing this is that the reason we're doing this focus group, and Andrew will attest, I've been trying to tell them that there is an earthquake coming on this issue and in the country, and they don't believe me. So I'm like, why don't you just hear it from people themselves?
If we don't get young conservatives in, we're going to end up losing to the Democratic Party because they're starting to get the younger generation involved within their representation. And it's just, if we don't start getting these young people from our generation or the next generation above us into Congress, then we're going to start losing.
When this debate pops up on your social media feed or on campus, what is the most persuasive pro-Israel point that you have seen or heard?
Talk more about how they help us with intelligence, especially with this new conflict with Iran. If you want to use that, say like, hey, Israel's very helpful in us deflecting with Iran and giving us influence over them because we can have more intelligence.
Do you find it persuasive when the Israeli tourism board is bragging about how many gay pride parades they have in Tel Aviv? No. Does that make you more pro-Israel?
No.
So what else is persuasive for you?
I would try to educate about Islamic terrorism. I think that's major, especially with the fact that we lived through 9/11. I think a lot of people in my generation don't understand how big of a situation it was. We know nothing about it.
And this is really similar with the Holocaust and the people who are this same demographic. If you really pay attention, they don't care. They weren't educated on it. When we came up, we were educated on this. That was part of our curriculum growing up in school. So they're so far removed. I'm not sure they have to care. They have to know about it so we can learn from history. But when they're saying, I don't care, you have to listen to them. You can't force stuff down people's throats. So when you have the Nick Fuentes types and you're trying to lecture, like Piers Morgan was trying to lecture him about Hitler, and he's like, I don't care. Believe him. But it's not just him. There's an entire generation that is so far removed from that. They can't even conceive of not having a cell phone. But you want them to care about a rotary phone. And you want them to have concern when the horse and buggy was our transportation versus the car. They don't care. They're removed from it. Educate them about it. Tell them about the tragedies, give them the numbers, but don't expect them to care. They're not invested. My son the other day said something really funny when we were talking about his charger. And I said, well, there was a day where we didn't have chargers. Well, how'd you charge your iPad? And I laughed. He can't even, and now he's young, obviously, he's 7 years old, but he couldn't even conceive of a time without an iPad. That's what he's growing up with. There were no cell phones. He can't even wrap his mind around that. What's going on, Uncle L? So when you're telling these kids who are in their 20s, and even some in their 30s, you need to care about the Holocaust the same way I did, or you're anti-Semitic. Well, guess what? You're making up some anti-Semites because they don't care. Educate them, but they're too far removed. Bad guy, it's true. How are you going to convince them to care? You want them to want. You want them to want to feel the way you do. They don't. They grew up completely different. And they're detached. And that's okay. You can't force it on them. But the more you try to brainwash, they're gonna pull back. And now guess what? Hitler jokes are gonna start being funny. Because it's rebelling. That's what kids do. And then you end up with the Nick Fuentes types, and everyone wants to compare him to Hitler, and really, he's just rebelling. He's rebelled against everything that he believes. He came up in this whole conservative movement, and now he's rebelling against it. So he's going to say everything that triggers people. Do I like that? No, I don't like that. Because he's not just trolling individual people. Now he's trolling the entire American public. There's no reason for that. But when you're trying to force your values on the people, do it through education. Don't try to do it through manipulation, because people can feel that manipulation. And anti-Semite, that doesn't work. It won't work. It can't work.
The most part.
I think maybe one other point maybe is about the Holy Land as well. You could make a point going to the Holy Land, filming videos, and say Israel's a better protector of the Holy Land than if there was a Palestinian.
It's the argument I make more than anything else.
I'm going to follow up on that.
That's my biggest argument. Keep going.
When the United States is like a mostly Christian country, not all Christian obviously, but a mostly Christian country, a lot of people can sympathize that is the Holy Land, that is where Jesus Christ lived and was crucified.
And rose from the dead, yes, sir.
On one side is the Lindsey Graham.
That we haven't seen that focus group. It happened months ago. But it came back to light recently when someone was talking about, I believe it was Zach Costello, and he was just talking about, hey, I dug this up and I'm looking at this, and the way they made it, the way they painted it out as if he had this unwavering support. Now, he was speaking openly out against things that he didn't agree with, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially with his age group. But this was his take on Iran. And we're moving here. We're walking. Walk with
John Bolton types, where they are actively calling for regime change. Here is Lindsey Graham. And this is just lunacy. This kind of analysis is not helpful. This kind of approach, this kind of argument, it has nothing to do with nuclear weapons at this point. This is now that we want to go all in and take out the regime. It's time for us to close the chapter on the Iranian Ayatollah and his henchmen and start a new chapter in the Middle East. And that sounds good, doesn't it? But what have we learned when it comes to wars, and especially wars in the Middle East? What you draw up on a whiteboard rarely happens. What you think theoretically is going to occur, there might be unintended and unforeseen consequences, especially when you're talking about a country 2.5 times the size of Texas. It has 90 million people and was an ancient power with well over a dozen ethnic groups. You have underground Christians. You don't really have many Jews left in Persia, but also you have secular younger Persians. Who's going to run the country exactly, Lindsey Graham? This sounds like Hillary Rodham Clinton in Libya. So I'm pointing to the first extreme right now, the neoconservative extreme. We must go take off the head of the snake right now. Play cut 285.
Be all in, President Trump, in helping Israel eliminate the nuclear threat. If we need to provide bombs to Israel, provide bombs. If we need to fly planes with Israel, do joint operations. But here's the bigger question. Wouldn't the world be better off if the Ayatollahs went away and replaced by something better? Wouldn't Iran?
This is like, if you really listen, this is like hippie talk in the 70s. Yeah, man, he's doing this utopian talk while talking about war. It's the complete opposite. So his path to utopia is slaughtering people, apparently. It's weird.
Be better off. It's time to close the chapter on the Iranian Ayatollah and his henchmen. Let's close that chapter soon and start a new chapter in the Mideast, one of tolerance, hope, and peace.
Okay, that sounds good, but that's pathologically insane. I'm sorry, it is. How do you know it's going to be better? Yeah, the Ayatollah is awful, but maybe he's one of the few guys that can keep that country together and not the 90 million person civil war. Lindsey Graham is so consistently out of his mind, it's hard to even comprehend. Iran is hugely diverse. It is a massive country. Do the people agitating for war even know that? Because be clear, regime change is war. Just to understand, regime change is not like changing the head coach at the Chicago Bears. It's not like a clean transfer. Typically in the Mideast, it's very messy, creates a quagmire, and then there is civil war. Do you understand how large Iran is? It's massive. It's a very big country. It's mountainous. It makes Afghanistan and Iraq look like a cakewalk. Just look at this beast of a country with all the different regions, all the different dialects, if we could put that up on screen. And then you have a major refugee concern of Mohammedans that will come to Europe and endanger more Christians than Jews, and Mohammedans that will come to America. No, that is wrong. So that is one extreme. The other extreme is one that I have deep respect and reverence for, because I actually think if we had that other extreme, we would not have invaded Iraq. This other extreme is philosophically important. It's important to consider, and that's the Ron Paul extreme. And I love Ron Paul. Ron Paul is awesome. I would have Ron Paul on the show regularly. He is a hero because Ron Paul had the courage to challenge old sacred cows of the Republican Party. He made people defend the indefensible. But the Ron Paul perspective is strictly isolationist. I actually agree with a lot of this other extreme, a lot. I think it's healthy to have this other extreme more than the neoconservative extreme, because this extreme has been underrepresented in the public dialogue and discourse the last 20 years. So you have these two extremes. I honestly don't think the neoconservative extreme needs to be represented philosophically anymore. It's uninteresting to me. They've done a mess of Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, the entire Middle East, Ukraine. We know what the neoconservatives believe. I do think hearing out, and honestly, I agree with a lot of the more, I think isolationist is used as a pejorative, but let's just say restrained community. Take out the Ayatollah. Resist that temptation. That's not prudence. That's not self-control. That's something else talking. That's a zeal. And the very same zeal got us involved in a pile of garbage in Iraq. It all felt good with shock and awe in March of 2003. We're unstoppable. We're going to take Iraq in a weekend. Turns out it didn't work that way. A lot of people died. A lot of Americans died unnecessarily.
I want to wrap up.
So he knew about this before I studied it, before I looked into it, before I watched this guy. I played this video. I'm rehashing it just so if you didn't see my last couple of lives, you can see that he is he's showing you what it would be like to go to war for real with Iran, and he superimposed. I think he's gonna explain it. Let's see.
With this map of Iran superimposed on the Western United States, I want to have a little thought exercise here, where we imagine that our goal is to come overthrow the Mormons in Salt Lake City, and we're invading from the port of San Francisco. Can you imagine trying to move all your troops and material over the Sierra Nevada mountains through Donner Summit and then all the way across Nevada against an enemy that has spent thousands of years fighting battles on this terrain and spent the last 30 years preparing for a war with the United States? Next time you're driving across Highway 80, imagine the logistics of trying to fight a war across that geography.
So Charlie understood that. Before it was needed to be understood, he was already talking about that, which is why he was so against this war. But he was talking about it before. He's credited as being the person who talked Trump against going to war last time and doing the surgical strikes. Turns out those didn't work. So this is him speaking right after October 7th. Again, was he unwavering in his support for the pro-Israel cause?
These guys not know this was taking place.
So I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still have the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that is an IDF soldier. Right? The whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu was basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu, where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here, but I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a
So it's okay to just ask questions. Because every time Candace Owens says that, she gets mocked. I'm just asking questions. It's okay to ask questions. He's asking questions of the man who claimed to be his really good friend and shows the letter and praises him. He's saying it's okay to ask if he knew. Now, if you said this, if it's Candace Owens saying this, they're saying, oh, she's implying that Netanyahu unalived Charlie Kirk. No. It's a legitimate question that should be asked.
Stand down order?
Was there a stand down order?
6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question.
The behavior by a lot, both privately and publicly, are pushing people like you and me away. Not like we're going to be pro-Hamas, not like we're going to, but we're like, honestly, the way you are treating me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Megan, calling me an anti-Semite. I am learning biblical Hebrew and writing a book on the Shabbat. I honor the Shabbat. Literally the Jewish Sabbath. I visit Israel and fight for it. And there's another article out in the Times of Israel today. I could read it on air. I was just reading before I got on. Charlie, what are you doing? Like, what am I doing? I'm sorry. Like, let's just take a step back here. Like, I'm an American citizen. Yes, I want Israel to win. Yes, I'm a Christian. But like some of the mess, and you've seen how I've been treated, Megan, by some, not all, by some.
No, it's very irritating.
It's
been so unfair. They were coming after you after Turning Point for, among other things, you had Dave Smith there. Dave Smith is allowed to criticize Israel. You had both sides. The Israeli side was overrepresented.
No, you're not allowed to. It's even worse than that. Again, I just want to repeat for the 5th time. I love Israel. I want Israel to win. But my moral character is now being put into question, Megan. Not my decisions. Not like, hey, are you doing this? Is it smart or is it dumb? But no, I am a bad person if I do this. And I could go, you saw it, Megan. It was trending on Twitter, thousands of tweets and text messages. And if I were to be charitable and generous, I will say the people that are attacking me are in a hyper paranoid state because they're at war, and war tends to make things black and white, and you're a hammer looking for a nail. So I'm trying to be charitable, Megan. Literally, I'm trying to cut as much slack as I can, right? Like, okay, what would it be like if all of a sudden I'm starting to see a pattern of behavior similar to what my grandparents saw in 1930s Germany online? How would I behave? So that's like my charitable kind of overcompensation spirit.
Talk about benefit of the doubt. They're calling this man anti-Semite after all he's done to promote the pro-Israel cause in this country. But he's doing it from a completely different perspective. He's doing it because he believes it's a biblical thing. And he's Christian and he's American. So he's saying, hey, we need to support these people. This is all he's doing. So even that guy was not safe from being called an anti-Semite, which is why earlier I was talking about it's not a good tactic to do this, to name call. It's just not, because you're going to push these people away. And what ended up happening? Well, let's see what happened.
Same time, I'm like, but it's not defensible to be dumb, right?
Yeah.
So
and it's offensive. It's offensive to those of us who have been out there defending them in many instances against critics on our own side. And now you have a couple of comments like, well, what about this? Well, has it gone on too long? Like, is it time to wrap it up? And the thing about Epstein is just so bizarre. I don't know who he was an agent for. It might have been Israel or an asset, or it might have been nobody. Yeah. But we're allowed to speculate about that. It's there's some rule. You can't go there when it comes to Israel.
Well, you and I believe that we're Americans and Americans first, period. End of story. We are citizens of this nation, okay?
That's right.
Israel, we have funded, we have supported, and they're up against a sea of Islamic totalitarianism, and we should be cheering for them, right? Because they're up against barbarians and monsters, and we want them to win. However, here is Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk combined probably 30 million social media followers, like pretty, right? And you and I have been holding this down, and you probably get the negative, oh, you're just shilling for Israel. Whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do what's right regardless of the feedback, right? But then all of a sudden, like, I host a person that I moderate the debate of, mind you, right? And I give equal time to Josh Hammer, equal time to a pro-Israel advocate, and my moral character is being put into question. And so I think it's a hyper paranoid, like, we're just going to try to, we're going to just stamp out everything type of practice. But it goes to the point where, if, for example, if I have less ability sometimes online to criticize the Israeli government without backlash than actual Israelis do. And that's really, really weird, isn't it, Megan? That's not right.
Does he sound super pro-Israel right now? Or is he expressing extreme frustration to the point where he's saying, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm trying. But they're being dumb. So when you start questioning, hey, what's the motivation of somebody to do something to this guy? If the first thing you tell me is the trans movement, I'm going to be like, he just now said between him and Megyn Kelly, they have 30 million social media followers. Maybe the motivation is to get him to shut up because he was such an advocate. And now he's saying, this is not good. He did the focus group where all the kids are like, yeah, we don't rock like this. And instead of saying, thank you for this input, we need to figure out a way to strategize to convey our message differently. They double down, triple down, quadruple down. And then if somebody says, hey, did they have something to do with him being taken down? You're anti-Semitic. You're evil, you're demonic, you're, none of it makes sense.
Text about you, Megyn, saying, why is Megyn like doing the bidding of Hamas?
He got texts about her, and that's not his wife, that's not his sister.
A backlash than actual Israelis do. And that's really, really weird.
Listen
isn't it,
to
Megyn?
this.
That's not right. I got text about you, Megyn, saying, why is Megyn like doing the bidding of Hamas? I was like, what are you talking about? Megyn's the best. Like, what? She's amazing. And I said, why are you texting me about Megyn? And I, at that point, and so this is what they don't understand. You and I, Megyn, and Tucker is in the same category, and they've tried to go after Tucker.
Yeah.
Is that and the more you attack our moral character, the more we're going to double down in a direction because 100%. Screw you, I don't do it that way, okay?
Right.
Like tell me I'm wrong. Cool. Tell me if I got my facts wrong. By the way, on the Epstein thing, Naftali Bennett says he was an Epstein agent. We have to be pursuers of truth. They've denied it. Fine. Let's keep digging. Okay, fine. But the thing that I think is being lost is like on some part of the population, you can scold them into silence, right? Mm-hmm. But if I have any deviation of a purity test, any deviation whatsoever, such as hosting a focus group, right, Megyn, with a bunch of our students that went viral, having Dave Smith or Tucker at my event, it is all of a sudden, oh, Charlie is he's no longer with us and all that. I said, wait a second, what do you mean? What does with us mean exactly, right? I'm an American, okay? Like I represent this country. And
does this sound like unwavering support, or does this sound like real frustration, legitimate frustration, anger? That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm seeing. It's pretty clear to me. But as soon as he passed away, they talked about his unwavering support for the pro-Israel cause. And he never blinked in his support for these people. You're seeing the exact opposite. So when you hear people say that TPUSA has taken his creation off and they're doing the exact opposite, that's what they're doing. It's literal. They're extreme Zionists now while he was pulling away from that. Well, how do you keep them to stay and going extreme Zionists? Well, you take out the one person who was wavering, who did blink, who openly said, I have a problem with this. I'm American first. They don't like hearing that. They really don't like hearing that. Because in their minds, Israel first is America first, which is psychotic and extreme narcissism. But that you hear people say it.
I don't even understand that paradigm, but Megyn, I think you would agree with this. I want to make sure we really zero in on this.
Listen to this guy.
Personality types like you, myself, and Tucker, the more that you guys privately and publicly call our character into question, which is not isolated, right? Megyn, it would be one thing if it was one text or two texts. It is dozens of texts.
Yes.
Then we start to say, hold the boat here. And to be fair, some of my really good Jewish friends are like, that's not all of us, it's all, but these are leaders too, though, right? These are stakeholders, right? And so, look, I'm afraid because, again, I want civilization to win. I want the West to win. I don't want the Islamo-fascist barbarians to storm the gates of Jerusalem. I want the holy sites protected. I believe in the Holy Land. I love that Jesus walked on water there and rose from the dead and preached in the Mount of Beatitudes. Like, I feel the connection to Israel. But at the same time, simultaneously, when the hostile reaction is that now Megyn and Charlie are enemies,
right?
Boy, I'll tell you, like, you're not gonna, I wouldn't say lose, but you will weaken and just basically deflate two of your strongest advocates if that continues.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah.
That was a couple of days before this happened, before he got unalived. Extremely frustrated, visibly, verbally frustrated, texting everybody, saying the same thing. that he feared for his life. He said, they're going to kill me. And here we are looking at what happened. This is months ago. This was in September.
Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror.
So what happens is Candace Owens says, she states the obvious. She states the obvious and says, okay, who had motive to do this? And not just do this, but do it publicly. Why? Are they sending a message? Look at the response. She's just asking. And she didn't say they did anything. She just said,
this is
who had the motive?
insane. It is false.
Insane.
It is outrageous. Charlie loved Israel. He loved the Jewish people. Now, if Charlie disagreed with a policy of mine or a decision here and there, not only did I not mind, I welcomed it. A few weeks.
Why would it only be here and there? See, I listen to words and I match them to the situation. I find that he threw that here and there in. So Charlie didn't, if it wasn't just here and there, you would have a problem with it. But as long as it's here and there, you're good with it. That's that weird phrasing to me. Very strange.
This is insane. It is false. It is outrageous. Charlie loved Israel. He loved the Jewish people. Now, if Charlie disagreed with a policy of mine or a decision here and there, not only did I not mind, I welcomed it. A few weeks before his death, I spoke to Charlie. I invited him to visit Israel again. And sadly, that won't happen. Now,
well, it wasn't going to happen anyway because he turned that down. He turned the invitation down, which adds more suspicion, in my opinion. I'm not saying he did it. I've yet to see somebody outright accuse anybody directly because nobody knows. Everyone's asking these questions because that's what you do. Hey, a husband was unalived. Can you do me a favor? Check out the wife's alibi. They go ask the wife some questions. Hey, where were you? Oh, you were at your cousin's house. Okay, then they go ask the cousin. Hey, what were you doing? Oh, I was with so and so. Okay, boom, you just now cleared that lead. You can move on. But to say you can't question it or it's evil and demonic, that's a problem. That's a big problem. Absolutely. He was saying it publicly. And the people there they're the ones who, I won't say swayed him, but he got the sentiment from the students and he couldn't argue with them anymore because he was agreeing with them. So he was literally meeting with people saying, hey, we need to change this messaging because they're right. And they're saying, no, they're not right. The hell they are right. You better figure it out. And he's saying, okay, I'll hold a focus group so I can figure this out with all the chapter leaders of TPUSA. And he holds that and they're still mad about it. And they're saying, well, why would you do that? You were leading your questions with them. No, they're having a conversation and those questions were still answered. And it's just weird because they're doing exactly what he said in that focus group that they were going to do. He said, I try to talk to them and their response is to be more aggressive. And people see it. It's off-putting. People don't want to see somebody getting bullied. Even if you don't believe in bullying, you don't like seeing somebody aggressive towards somebody who doesn't want to fight. And that's what we're seeing here.
How some are peddling these disgusting rumors, perhaps out of obsession, perhaps with Qatari funding.
And that's interesting because nobody had accused him at this point. She simply said that she's suspicious of everyone. She said everyone. She said anyone with motive, whether it's money, whether it's political, and he jumped out and just this disgusting rumor. I can't believe this. I didn't do it. Well, nobody said you did it, but now we got to look at you. Who jumps out ahead and starts saying I didn't do? Can you imagine if any of you guys or you ladies, my husband or my wife, they're unalived, and the first thing you do is say, I didn't kill my husband, or guys, I didn't kill my wife. Like everyone's gonna look at you. That's not normal behavior. All you do is draw suspicion towards yourself by doing this.
About 48 hours before Charlie Kirk died, Charlie informed people at Turning Point, as well as Jewish donors and a rabbi, that he had no choice but to abandon the pro-Israel cause outright. Okay, Charlie was done. He said it explicitly. that he refused to be bullied anymore by the Jewish donors? Can you guys answer? Did he express that? Did he also express that he wanted to bring me, Candace Owens, back because he was standing up for himself? And then did he, just 48 hours later, conveniently catch a bullet to the throat before our onstage reunion could happen? It's a yes or a no. Okay, let's stop this ditching. Let's stop the dodging. Let's explicitly, I want to hear from Turning Point USA that I'm lying about that. Yeah, I'm putting.
What's interesting about this is everyone started calling her a liar. Everyone was calling her a liar. That was the first wave of attacks on her. And she's saying, well, wait a minute. Well, there was other ones before this, but this was a big one. A huge one, because they're all saying, no, Charlie didn't like her. He didn't talk to her. They haven't spoken in years. That made her mad. And this was her response to it. Publicly call me a liar and watch what I do.
Putting the fire here right at the feet of Turning Point, because I am disgusted. I am genuinely disgusted. I am looking around and wondering whether Charlie's entire life was the Truman Show. None of you guys are behaving in the way that you should be behaving, okay? There is no way you are letting these lies fly. And I'm going to, again, challenge you to lie. And if you do lie, I'm going to expose the lies. And I'm going to start dropping videos, actually. So that's where I'm at. Enough of the games. Enough with trying to allow Israel to wrangle a narrative that you know is not true. Charlie did not die pro-Israel. He did not die for Israel. He did not martyr himself as a friend of Israel. In fact, the friends of Israel were pressuring him really badly, and he was done, and he finally stood up for himself. And I'm proud of that. So Charlie writes.
So they all called her a liar, and this is what happens every time. So she's crazy, she's a liar, she's obsessed, she's a stalker. She wanted to really be the one who married Charlie Kirk, even though she got married to somebody else first. They just push narratives. This is when I started picking up, and this is when I started going live on this topic, because I'm like, this is weird. Why are they attacking her like this when all they have to do is prove her wrong? They couldn't prove her wrong. They denied it, they lied, and then she dropped these text messages. This was a bomb. This was a nuke on social media because she wasn't lying. And their only response to these text messages was, I can't believe she's so disgusting. She would leak private text messages. That was one group. The other group was saying, well, how do we even know that's real? Anybody can fake text messages, until it was validated.
This group chat just lost another huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year, because we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candace. Somebody writes, oh. Charlie writes, Jewish donors play into all of the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. And somebody writes, a donor writes, please do not invite Candace. That might feel good short term, but it's not good long term, in my opinion. Like all groups, you're going to get a wide variety of opinions. That nasty free will thing that God bestowed on us makes life frustrating at times after the dust settles a bit, maybe. So again, this is 48 hours before Charlie was assassinated. He was very clear and he was very explicit, and he did not back down in that hand.
What's really interesting is he said, they're leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause, and they were still complaining about her. It's like they didn't even read what he said. All they could see is their hatred for her. And now, if you say Charlie left the cause, you know what they're going to say? Oh, he just expressed disagreements. No, he literally said he was done. Literally. Like, it couldn't be clearer what he said. And he was saying it to those people. All the people who were pressuring her. He was saying it.
Thinking of inviting Candace. Somebody writes, oh.
Thinking of inviting Candace.
Charlie writes, Jewish donors play into all of the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause.
And instead of responding to him saying, I'm done with this whole, all of it, they say, no, don't bring back Candace. They completely missed the part because they ignored it. And in the public, they do the same thing. No, he was just expressing disagreement. He was voicing frustrations and disagreement. No. He outright said it. It couldn't be clearer. But she's crazy. She hadn't spoken to him in years. Again, she's a star. All this stuff that they were saying about her, she felt the need. She had to drop this. And they got mad at her for telling the truth. Right now, you can log on to X and you will see nothing but smears on Candace Owens, and all of them saying she never brings proof. Well, this was the biggest proof you could possibly bring. And not only did they dismiss it, but now they act like it never happened. They'll still push that he was essentially Zionist. And in a way he was, but he was not what they're doing at all. He was done. He said it. They're completely rewriting history right in front of us. So when people like me are like, "No, he's done," they flood the timelines with all these quotes from before he started getting frustrated. See, look at him. There he is defending Israel. Look at him. There he is defending Netanyahu. Yeah, that was before. What about weeks and months leading up to his assassination? How did he feel then? He was unwavering, never blinked an eye.
And somebody writes, donor writes, please do not invite Candace. That might feel good short term, but it's not good long term, in my opinion. All groups, you're going to get a wide variety of opinions. That nasty free will thing that God bestowed on us makes life frustrating at times after the dust settles a bit, maybe. So again, this is 48 hours before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He was very clear and he was very explicit, and he did not back down, not in that Hamptons meeting, which they're all lying about, nor in this text thread. I'm not going to reveal the names of the other 7. Actually, you know what? I disagree with myself 4 seconds ago. Let's just throw in Josh Hammer for funsies. He's on this chat, okay?
Before that speech that I gave in July, we had a conversation about this backstage right before I went on. And I was fulminating and getting all red in the face like I often do, to my shame. And I was mad thinking about this and thinking about the effort by the neocons in the United States to draw us in to another forever war with Iran. It's not a defense of Iran, of course. It's merely an acknowledgement that we've done this before. This happened in Iraq, which we entered into at the behest of those same foreign policy strategists.
Now, what he's talking about is he did a speech for TPUSA, and ooh, it made people mad. It made them furious. But he talked about it with Tucker. This is Tucker Carlson. He talked about it with Charlie Kirk. So pay attention to what happens here.
And it didn't work. And so I was going on at some length backstage with Charlie, and I said, probably not going to talk about that. I'm not going to torture you. I know your donors hate this when I say that. And also Epstein was in the news, and it was clear to me that, Epstein's probably not like a Mossad agent or something, but Epstein clearly had contact with Israeli intelligence and American intelligence and French intelligence, but the only one you're not allowed to talk about is Israeli intelligence. But it seemed true to me, and I had done some work on that. I knew a bunch of people pretty close to that story. So I thought that. And I said that to Charlie, and I said, but I'm not going to say that because I don't want to make your donors mad. I know it's just going to be like an endless flurry of text telling you to stop or you're going to lose a bunch of funding. And he looked at me, I'll never forget it, and said, go all the way. Do it. Go all the way. I said, man, a lot of things I can talk about. I don't need to talk about that. And he said, do it. So I did it.
And what's interesting is everyone called him a liar. The Mark Levins, the Ben Shapiros of the world. No, that never happened. He's a liar. So Megyn Kelly did not have to do what you're going to see that she did. Didn't have to do it at all. She stepped up and said, actually, I was there.
Recently, going through some old pictures to find one of me and Charlie that I knew we took at that event. And not only did I find pictures of me and Charlie, but I found a video of me, Tucker, and Charlie speaking backstage right before Tucker went out. Tucker and I were talking. Charlie came over and interrupted for just a second. He says to Tucker, go Max. He interrupts the conversation because he has to say to Tucker something. And what was so important to him to tell Tucker was, go Max. Here it is. Go Max. It's quick. It just happens to be on tape. And it backs up what Tucker said.
And ever since then, she's gotten attacked nonstop. Tucker obviously is always going to get attacked. But then Candace Owens was being attacked as well because Candace is just trying to investigate and find out exactly what happened. She just wants to know what happened. Tucker, they hate because they can't do anything with him. They sent Ted Cruz after him, horribly bombed. They sent Mike Huckabee after him, really needs to resign after the stuff that he said. And he has the truth on his side, and he just speaks very calmly, and he laughs in people's faces, and they hate him. They hate him. Charlie clearly had the full intent to have that man say what he said. They hated him so much that they started threatening Tucker because he was having, they started threatening Charlie because he was having Tucker on and speak at AmFest. So Charlie was unalived, and at AmFest, there was a full court press against all of TPUSA to make sure Tucker does not speak. Go completely against Charlie Kirk's wishes. Charlie Kirk lost $2 million from one person over that Tucker Carlson thing. And he said, I don't care. I'm over it. And that's when he said he was thinking of bringing Candace back. So As soon as he's gone, they go completely against his wishes and do a full-fledged campaign against Tucker Carlson. Ben Shapiro, who did not get along with Charlie Kirk at all, gets on stage, bashes Megyn Kelly, who's Charlie's friend, bashes Tucker Carlson, who clearly was his friend. He lost $2 million for him and didn't budge. And Candace Owens, who clearly everyone knows they were friends. They were inseparable for like 3 years straight. And that's what happens at AmFest. Completely against Charlie Kirk's wishes, they do this anyway. And then they wonder why people are like, what are you guys doing? Why would you let Ben Shapiro get up on stage and do this? He wasn't even close with that. Like, they didn't even like each other. He was trying to end TPUSA before TPUSA ever got off the ground. And it never stopped. As soon as Charlie's dead, this vulture swoops in. The vulture being Ben Shapiro, of course.
All I know about the Charlie Kirk assassination is that I've been handed a story that doesn't add up. I don't know why it doesn't add up, but the fact that we didn't get to the bottom of it in some way, that we got a compelling explanation to what happened, worries me. Iraq was so bad, and so publicly so, that the public again was traumatized by the idea of these engagements. And what that did is it put Iran on hold. The neocons didn't give it up, but it went on the back burner. I feel, I cannot say for sure, but I feel that something was watching and it felt the clock ticking and its opportunity to finally bring about this war, which I think Netanyahu said he's been dreaming of for 40 years.
He did say that.
So something wanted this war to happen, and there was the perception that the opportunity, the window was closing, so it had to be brought about quickly. Given how public Charlie was on this topic, I can't help but wonder. Now, obviously that will sound crazy to many people, that something would have even considered such a thing. But I will say that after Charlie was killed, Benjamin Netanyahu very quickly denied responsibility for it. I was shocked by this. It did not seem natural.
Well, and who this guy is, his name's Bret Weinstein. He's ethnically Jewish, but he doesn't practice. He's an atheist. But he's also an evolutionary biologist, highly, highly, highly respected scientist. So it's not crazy or conspiratorial. Not to say that your vocation determines whether or not you're sane or not sane, but more people are starting to come out when they're hearing Candace's reasons for doing what she's doing and actual evidence. They keep saying she never brings evidence or proof. Absolute lie. But now you have higher up people starting to say, hey, the story's not really adding up.
Now, I'm not saying that that means that anything in that quadrant was responsible for the murder. All I know is that we didn't get a decent investigation.
Not worth it.
But I did feel, and maybe I hope you will tell me that I'm imagining this. I did feel that denial by Netanyahu was effectively a Rorschach test and maybe designed to be one. That I was supposed to feel alarmed by this, and a normal person was supposed to think, that is batshit crazy. He said they didn't do it. Obviously they didn't do it. So anyway, I'm not telling you that I see the evidence that somebody did it, but what I am telling you is we've just found ourselves in a war that Charlie would have been opposed to. We know that from his public and private statements, and that he would have been a formidable force in opposition. So what am I to think? Why? At least we should have an investigation that tells us for sure that we know who committed the crime and that there wasn't something larger about it. But look, now I've said unforgivable things. It's done.
I don't know why that's unforgivable. I mean, this is an American citizen, someone you knew, and you're not accusing anyone of anything. And I do think, leaving aside Charlie's murder and the question of who did it, for a foreign leader to weigh in immediately and hog all the attention and make it all about himself and start issuing statements about how Charlie lived and died for Israel is totally unforgivable. I say this as his friend. I just think if someone did that to me after my death, I think my family would be outraged. It's not about you,
right,
Bibi? So that was disgusting behavior from someone with a track record of disgusting behavior. But at the very least, we could say that's just wrong. That's not how you behave in the wake of a young man's murder. And I'm never alleged. I don't even talk about this topic, and I'm not going to now, other than to say, I think everything you've said is entirely reasonable, and it's not an insult to the living.
Well,
to want to know what happened to the dead.
Yes, of course. And let's put it this way. If we had a healthy public discussion in which we could air crazy ideas, dismiss them because they don't stand up logically, that would be fine. But we don't have that. You've been on a lonely mission to convince the president not to engage in war in Iran and to get him to back out as quickly as possible, declare victory, and go home. It hasn't gone well.
No, it's been an abject failure.
What do you think Charlie would have been doing if he had lived?
I think he'd be doing the same. Of course, if there's one topic I talk to him a lot about is this. And no, of course. And his motive was pure. I sincerely believe that. His only interest was in the United States. And he certainly wasn't opposed to Israel. He loved Israel. He often said that. He didn't love Bibi, that's for sure. Sorry. Anyone who claims otherwise is lying or doesn't know. But he did love Israel. And both as a biblical concept and as a current reality, he went there and liked it. But he was totally opposed to this work. He said that many times.
I want to find out that my darkest concerns are wrong in an open enough public conversation that it becomes
or even if
they're
they're right. Let's just get it over with. Get it over with.
Whatever
just
it
admit
is.
I mean, I went last week to an AA meeting. I don't go to AA meetings, but I don't drink, but I went with a really close friend of mine who does go a lot. And if you've never been, I know you're not an alcoholic, but you should play one for a weekend and go, because the freedom that comes from admitting your deepest sins, your most profound weaknesses, the true liberation that comes from that is it's like nothing else. There's no liberation like that. And the freedom of that. Yep, I did it.
Well, that's it. We need, there's so much burden from what we can't discuss.
Yes!
And don't know. I don't think it's logical to regard those concerns as preposterous. Right. If you also regard the stakes in Iran as existential for Israel. In other words, what will people do if they think their interests are all bound up in a policy that has to happen right now, and that people are standing in the way and therefore putting them in jeopardy of elimination?
Them and their children.
Right.
And their children's children and their nation. I mean, put yourself in the position of other people. Try to see the world through their eyes just for a second, and you can understand dynamics of it. People risk their lives to rob liquor stores.
Right. And, people will do anything to protect themselves and their children from a threat that they perceive.
Of course.
And my concern is that we are not allowed, somehow, as Americans, we have lost our right to challenge the policy on its merits. It's, you speak logically about the likely outcome of war in Iran, and the response that comes back is about your morality, right? That's a non sequitur. We can talk about two different things. What are our moral obligations, and what is the logical context in which we are being asked to participate in this? Those are both worthy conversations. But when you come back at me for my logical point about this military engagement with an accusation about my character, then something has gone awry. That's not how we behave, right? We have a right to air our grievances, and the marketplace of ideas can sort out which ones are right. And frankly, there's only one metric that really matters in the end. That's predictive power.
What you're saying to me is so self-evidently true and reasonable and moderate and sensible and logical and impressive, and this is how we should think, that I can't even conceive of how you could be attacked for saying anything you've said.
So I'm bringing this up for a reason. Let me make this bigger. ATF submitted a 4-page report to the courts, and they analyzed the bullet jacket fragment recovered from the autopsy of Charlie Kirk, and the rifle that they're saying is Tyler Robinson's. And the result of the comparison was inconclusive. Now, does that mean that it's the right one? No. Does that mean that it's not the right one? No. But they cannot match that rifle to that bullet that unalived Charlie Kirk in front of the world, if it's even a bullet that did it. The defense argues that the evidence is exculpatory. Exculpatory means that's it. It is conclusive. You can't convict a man when your biggest piece of evidence says that it's not really a big piece of evidence. There is an 80% chance that this is going to stick. There's a 20% chance that, because they're retesting, that the results can come back different. But the biggest piece of evidence, because everyone's saying, oh, it's open and shut case. They got the bullet, they got it. The bigger one that they keep saying now, they've kind of shifted since this report came out, because this was submitted by the defense. Now they're saying, yeah, but his fingerprints match the gun. It's like, okay, because it's his gun. It's the gun that we found. Okay, well, again, it's his gun. But the bullet that unalived Charlie Kirk, or so they say, does not match that rifle. And if it does, they can't say yes or no that it does. That's inconclusive, which means their number one piece of evidence is gone. Can they get a conviction? They're going to try to force one, but it's not open and shut, which means they should still be investigating all these questions that Candace Owens has been asking for, 6 months in now? All of those leads need to be followed. Every one of them.
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months. They have the wherewithal, the stored up, preserved knowledge to make a bomb very quickly if they wanted to do it. Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs. They're very close. They're 6 months away from being about 90% of having the enriched uranium for an atom bomb. Iran is gearing up to produce 25 bombs, atomic bombs a year, 250 bombs in a decade. Ladies and gentlemen, time is running out. Iran will be capable of producing alone, without importing anything, nuclear bombs within 3 to 5 years.
President Trump.
All right, so I play that again because we're now leading into Joe Kent. And you now have a full background on Charlie Kirk. Joe Kent, well, it'll explain who he is.
Top counterterrorism official resigning tonight, saying Iran posed, quote, no imminent threat to the U.S. Late today, the president lashing out after Joe Kent, his hand-picked director of the National Counterterrorism Center, quit his post.
Tonight, the administration's top counterterrorism official resigning in protest over President Trump's war with Iran, declaring Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. Joe Kent, director of the National Counterterrorism Center, writing, I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. It is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby.
Now, the irony of what you guys are about to see, and again, I played that before, and I played that little montage before. But again, because I told you guys I was going to come back to this, because this is huge. The story is massive. I didn't cover this part of the story. But when he did this, he started getting attacked almost as if he were Candace Owens. That's how much people were attacking him from the right.
I think Joe Kent is a coward. I think he's a coward, and he should be ashamed of himself. He should be honored for his service that he committed to this country, but he's a coward for what he did. And then it had nothing to do with Israel. I think what he said about us fighting the war for Israel is nonsensical. But people have a right to have a stupid opinion if they want to. But the fact that you think you a man, you think you doing something, you think it's honorable that you can say, I'm going to resign because I don't believe in this, but the men and women who serve can't resign. You think you're doing something. You're not a leader. You're a coward. You are a coward. It ain't got nothing to do with Israel. I don't care what he said about Israel. So I'm not Israeli. I don't live in Israel. I've been in Israel one time. I don't care. But when you're going against your own country and you grandstanding and acting like I'm gonna resign because I don't agree with the war. Well, a lot of people that died for this country didn't agree with wars that we were in. But they wasn't enough a wussy to punk out in the middle of a war. If you're a real man, you'll see it through. I hate wussies. You're a real man, you'll see it through. It ticks me out because I hate when dudes act like they, no, you ain't doing nothing. You let your country down. That's what you did. Because I bet you $1 million there's other people in the administration that may not agree with everything. But they're going to stand up and they're going to fight to the end. That means if I disagree with Donald Trump, I'm going to disagree with him in the position that I'm in to make, to make a difference or something. What a wuss. Just like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't like what I'm going to quit. No, you stand in there and you look Donald Trump in the eye and say, this is wrong. Make him fire you. But instead, you punked out like a coward. And all the men and women who may also disagree with the war, they don't get the punk out. They got to stand over there in the barracks. They got to stand over there deployed, away from their family, and they got to fight for this country.
So he's one of the dumbest human beings in politics or political commentary right now. That's Brandon Tatum. He called Joe Kent a coward for leaving his position. He should have stayed and got fired. He offered no solutions. Let's go this one here. This is who he's talking about. Why can't I open this? Can't make it bigger? All right, yeah, there we go. Pull that down. This is who he's talking about right here. Joe Kent has 6 Bronze Star medals and 5 Oak Leaf clusters across 11 combat deployments. This is what I talked about the other day. As a Green Beret, in some of the biggest battles of the global war on terror. That's what we're talking about here. That's what I'm talking about here. This is who that guy is calling a coward. And I don't know what a oak leaf cluster was, so I looked up oak leaf cluster. And it is small bronze or silver. Well, it's actually just describing it. It is said it's worn on ribbons or medals to represent second and subsequent awards, meaning repeat awards. It denotes the subsequent award with a silver cluster. They're worn on the left side. That's positioning. Okay, the purpose of it is to signify that the recipient has been awarded the same decoration multiple times. The color significance. Bronze represents one additional award, second, third, fourth, or fifth award total. Silver represents 5 additional awards, 6, 7, etc. So he got 5 of those clusters. 5 across 11 deployments. Not many people can say that they served and went into combat 11 times. Not many people, not just in America, not many people, period, can say that. But because Brandon Tatum, one of the dumbest voices in political commentary, said that he's a coward, then he must be a coward. And why? What was his justification for calling him a coward? He quit. So now,
Dan Bongino real quick. This is what I've been waiting on. This may be the rest of the show. I want to be very clear with my audience. Everybody keeps asking me, Candace Owens, Candace Owens, Candace Owens. I do not agree with what Candace Owens is saying. I don't agree how she's doing it. I don't agree what she's saying it. I think it's the most bizarre thing I ever heard. Now, why do I not say her name every time I have something to say? Because it's not about the person. It's about the spirit behind what's happening. I would have to name 25,000 people every day, every time I make a statement. And it bothers me that people want to see drama more than they want to see solutions. But Dan Bongino said it like it's supposed to be said. It's not about the individual person specifically. It's about anybody.
Dan Bongino was second in command at the FBI and literally quit. So he went from calling one man who was the head of counterterrorism a coward for leaving his position to celebrating Dan Bongino, who literally quit the FBI. Now, this guy, Joe Kent, was a conscientious objector. Dan Bongino didn't like working 10-hour days. And he was too much time away from my wife. You're second in command at the FBI. She doesn't understand that? So one guy's a coward because you don't like his position. The other guy is brave. And man, I wish I could be like Dan Bongino. What a great podcaster. Ignoring the fact that he was a Fed. But on top of that, there's another level of this because you called this guy a coward for not being for a war and for quitting. Very similar. I mean, I'm not going to compare him to Muhammad Ali, but he took the same stance, but he took it from a position of power. He was the head of global terrorism intel. That's his job. Muhammad Ali took a moral stance from a similar position power in a entertainment sense and a fame notoriety sense because he lost years off of his career. This guy went public and said, I can't do that for this reason. I'm standing on it. That's not cowardice. But this coward, he's been posting since Candace Owens started commenting and doing live streams on the Charlie Kirk thing. He's been saying it's evil, it's demonic, you can't possibly be a friend of Charlie and say these things, but he won't say her name. And he's saying, you guys want me to say her name, but if I say names, I have to say 20,000 names every time. No, you don't, because everyone knows who you're talking about. There's only one #1 podcaster in the world who's doing that. So who's the coward here, Brandon? Because now you're taking up he's with a coward, Dan Bongino, according to his own definition. If you leave your post with the feds and you don't let the president fire you, you're a coward. That's Dan Bongino. So you're taking up and you're siding with this coward against your friend, the woman you call your sister, Candace Owen, because you don't want to say her name, but you want somebody to call her evil and to curse her out because you're too big of a coward to do it. Listen to this.
You know who they are.
You know
people
who
in the comment section, won't you say that? If you know who I'm talking about and you know who it is, then what are you talking about? You won't.
We're talking about standing on it. Be a man. Say her name. Don't say how much you love her and how she's never done anything to me. And then video after video after video after video call her evil and demonic and satanic. And I can't believe anyone would attack Erica Kirk. She's a saint.
Drama? You want an argument? You can give a person so much airtime all they want. What is that going to do to the principle of what's happening? I'm not going to lie, man. I
Listen
feel
to
very
this.
similar to Dan
Look at this
Bongino.
coward. He said, I feel similar to this. Now, you're going to just watch this man. What's going on, Phoenix? Thank you very much. You're going to watch this man curse out Candace Owens and other people like her. And he's just sitting there cheering it on because he's too big of a wuss to do it himself. But he's got the nerve to call a special ops Green Beret, 11-time deployed combat warrior for this country. He called him a coward. But you can't even talk to a woman.
You go yourself. You demonic. For as much as I hate what just happened, I wish ill on no one. And everyone should restrain their emotions from the other side because they are not on our side. Everyone. Once you go down the road of violence, there's no turning back. There's always someone stronger than you, man. Always. There's a whole lot of people stronger than me. And I'm sorry if the language distracts from you, but I can think of no other New York way to say it than you. You deserve to feel the little licks of the flames of on every inch of your body. You. If there's an afterlife.
And he's smiling.
Oh, and I believe there is. I believe in the second creation. I don't pretend to be the judge and jury, but I know you're not in it. I got to tell you, I've been doing this for a really long time now. And as I said in the beginning of the show, I walked into the dark forest. I didn't know where it's going to go. I did not have this all mapped out because I don't know what to say. People have tried being nice. People have tried screaming and yelling. People have tried a middle of the road approach. Nothing works. Ignore it. It metastasizes. Address it. It metastasizes. I wish I had the answer. I can only make decisions for me. I can't make decisions for you as to what you want to watch or what you don't. This isn't about views or who's popular or who's this. I don't care. I'm just telling you I'm making a decision for me now. I don't want to be any part of that. If you're part of that, please leave. If it is half my audience disappears tomorrow, good riddance. Sayonara, mother. I don't want you. Nobody else wants you here. The people who watch this show don't want you here. Sane people, and that is a majority of us, hate your guts. We don't want you. Nobody wants you. You were the spawn of Satan. I promise your parents, alive or dead, are looking at you now in horror that they spawned a demon. Your last name will live in infamy. Your kids will deny knowing you. I don't want anything to do with you. I see you out there. I know exactly what you're doing. You can just go. It's not an airport. You don't have to announce your departure. Just go.
So anything that he could to relate and say that Candace Owens is going to hell, licking flames and F you and I hate you and all that psychotic rant from a guy who Brandon Tatum calls a coward because he left his position. He had his position the exact same amount of time. Actually, Joe Kent lasted longer than Dan Bongino. And GWB says something 100% accurate. Bongino was ranting and raving about the Epstein files before he joined the FBI. While he was at the FBI, 0 arrests in relation to that. Now they'll say, "Oh, we arrested this many predators," but it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. We're talking about an organized elite group of people who are transferring children around and selling them and abusing them. You're talking about now. I'm not going to say it's not bad or it's not good to catch somebody who's still a pervert doing something, the same thing, but we're talking about our leaders doing it and world leaders doing it. That is the swamp. They should all be locked up. These are people in a position of power. Again, I'm not diminishing the guy who lives, and works at a daycare and does disgusting things. I'm not diminishing that at all. What I'm saying is when former presidents and former first ladies and royalty, European royalty and Saudi and Middle East royalty are doing it, I want them gone because they're still in power. And he did a 180-degree turn absolutely about his feelings about them. As a matter of fact, he said they don't exist. And then when the guy was unalive, Epstein, he said, I saw the footage. I showed this. If you guys don't watch me, I showed the exact view that Bongino had to supposedly watch the whole thing. Clear as day. Didn't happen. He unalived himself. He's lying. So not only did he not arrest anybody in relation to the Epstein files, he lied about how Epstein died and that he could see it. And then he lied and said there were no files. But there were 6 million and they only released half. And now he's up there on a podcast, back to the podcasting world, cursing out Candace Owens for asking, hey, what happened to Charlie Kirk? She's the devil. And this coward, this weasel worm, just a snake, one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. He's laughing at it. But he would never say that about her. You know why? Because she'd destroy him. Like she destroys everybody else. And she probably knows things about him. So he sits back like this, trying to judge people. And he's too scared to call out one that he actually knows. He's a coward. What does she weigh? 110 pounds? 115 pounds? A small woman, he can't bring himself to just say what he wants to say. So he's cheering on a guy condemning her to hell.
Kirk could have married anybody. I'm not going to say anybody meaning...
Listen to this.
He could have married someone else if he wanted to. He chose Erica Kirk. She has been nothing but sweet, kind, and godly since the day I met Erica. She has been a saint.
A saint.
Every conversation that I've ever had with Erica, every text that she's texted my wife, she has been nothing but a Christian, loving, godly woman without fault.
Joe Kent.
Without fault. I just wanted to play that because you have a coward trying to call an actual hero a coward, and he's just disgusting. So what happens? You have a full campaign against Joe Kent. Here's the guy with the midget horse insulting a man who's 10 times the man he is, and his actual hero
is a former failed congressional candidate from Washington State who's elevated to the position of director of the National Center for Counterterrorism, which you really...
He didn't earn it. He was elevated. Listen to the words. So this one here is a wordsmith. I used to really like this guy, but this is different. This is not this moron, crybaby, wuss, Brandon Tatum. This is a guy who's really smart, and he uses that smarts to manipulate, and he uses language in a way that makes you think, well, a failed candidate. Oh, there you go. He's already a loser. He was elevated to the position. He didn't earn it.
Godly woman without fault.
Joe Kent is a former failed congressional candidate from Washington State who's elevated to the position of director of the National Center for Counterterrorism, which you really had never heard of, by President...
Look at it. Let's diminish the role. It's only the #1 position under Tulsi Gabbard, and gains. He gathers all information on global terror. That's his job. But you never heard of that. He's a nobody. This guy had the nerve to quit.
Trump, and he served under Tulsi Gabbard. Kent is a former Green Beret and served in the CIA as well. Now, Kent has a...
Look at that. Look, you see how fast he went through the most important part of the story? He's a Green Beret. Yeah. Now, he quit. See how dismissive he was of the actual titles that man has and the actual accolades? The man lost his wife in combat. She was a hero too. And Ben Shapiro. Oh, and by the way, he served in them. Yeah. Green Beret. Yeah. It's not a big deal. Bronze Stars. Yeah. What was the oak leaf clusters? Yeah. That's not a big deal. But guess what? He quit. He betrayed Trump.
Long political history. In 2020, he voted for Bernie Sanders, but back in 2022...
Oh, yeah. See, he may be socialist. Just throwing that out there. There's no reason that's relevant. But he's throwing out anything negative that he can think of, because people are going to say, "Oh, this is a big one. This is big. This is we need to tear this guy down." Just on accolades alone, but accolades combined with the title that he had and the job that he was, the responsibility that he was had, or that he was given, that he stepped down over an objection, is huge, because he was stepping down from somebody he agrees with. He agrees with Trump, just not on this one. And this one is too big, because he believes too many people are going to die, or too many people have died over stuff like this when it's not necessary. So Ben Shapiro has to tear him down. Almost called him out his name. Branham the snake has to tear him down.
Kent ran for Congress, and he ran into a bit of trouble because of his aide's associations with white supremacists. According to Nick Fuentes, Kent sought his support, but then was forced to disavow him when that support became public. Kent says,
Let's think about this. Ben Shapiro says never listen to Nick Fuentes. Can't believe a word that comes out of his mouth. He hates him. He's an anti-Semite. He's a white supremacist. It's the same thing they do to everybody. But believe him on this one. Believe him on this fact. Joe Kent was just like him. He's a white supremacist. Yeah. Green Beret special ops. Yeah. War hero. Okay, yeah. That's not important. Lost his wife. Okay, yes, I get it. But he's a white supremacist. I never knew somebody could be so evil like Ben Shapiro and use his mind and his ability for just the worst. He's bloodthirsty. That's what he is. He's a leech. He needs the blood. You're going to tear down a man who's done more in his life than you could even dream. And you're going to call him a racist.
Been for a very long time conspiratorially minded in the extreme. He suggested that the Secret Service might have been in on the assassination attempt on President Trump in July.
Is that a conspiracy? I think it's pretty logical to say, how is it possible that a man was able to shoot Donald Trump in the ear and no one checked out the roof over there? But people that were in the crowd saw a guy up there? And that's a conspiracy to suggest that the Secret Service could have had something to do with it. It's unbelievable how the media works. You guys need to really pay attention to the media, because this is the kind of stuff we get fed. And if you hear it enough times, you assume, why would this guy, look, he's a religious guy. He's got on the yarmulke. He's got to be telling the truth. Nah.
Been for a very long time conspiratorially minded in the extreme. He suggested that the Secret Service might have been in on the assassination attempt on President Trump in July 2024, among other bizarre theories. He's also been strangely supportive of Russian dictator Vladimir Putin's aggression against Ukraine. Before that, though, Kent had some bizarrely heterodox views. In 2020, after President Trump knocked off Iranian terror master Qasem Soleimani, Kent explained, quote, "We remain in striking distance by choice for no clear benefit. We should crush their ballistic and nuke capes and get out of Iraq with sanctions to follow." Interesting, because that's kind of what President Trump has been doing. In the letter.
All right, I'll keep playing. He's driving me crazy, but I'll let it play.
Kent announced that, quote, "Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby." You know who he's talking about, don't you? You know, nudge, nudge. He then stated that Trump had been duped by, quote, "high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media who deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran."
Press Secretary.
So again, these are just attacks on this guy because they saw he's going on Tucker Carlson and he's supposed to be speaking with Candace. So that's probably today, Monday. That's probably going to be today's episode of Candace Owens or whatever her next episode is going to be. Attack him.
Via X released a very lengthy statement that began like this: "There are many false claims in this letter, but let me address one specifically, that Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation," she writes. "As President Trump has clearly and explicitly stated, he had strong and compelling evidence that Iran was going to attack the United States first."
She said that President Trump is responsible for determining what is and is not an imminent threat, and that President Trump took action against Iran. But Chairman Emeritus of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Michael McCaul, said on Elizabeth Vargas Reports that Iran did not pose such an imminent threat. Watch.
Here's another one.
But to be clear, you thought an attack from Iran on the United States was imminent?
I do not.
I think that the ICBM capability would be an imminent threat to the United States, but they have not developed that capability. That's something they've been working on.
Right.
They do have the ballistic missiles that they've fired that they could deliver a dirty bomb to, but they didn't have the ICBM capabilities developed.
And so
So you have Joe Kent, Tulsi Gabbard also said the same, that their assessment there was no imminent threat. And now you have that guy. I don't even know who that guy is, but he's apparently a big deal. I don't know who he is. He's not in politics, so I don't know or care about him. What I care about is they're agreeing with Joe Kent. So where's the lie? Because now we're just talking political smear. They're just smearing him, and they don't listen to this guy. Don't listen to him. But Rubio,
the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against America.
Hold on, let me go back, because that me saying the wrong name threw me off. Marco Rubio said this, and I played it twice. Listen to what he's saying.
And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action.
We knew Israel was going to attack Iran. That's what he's saying.
We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces.
So because Israel is going to attack them, they're going to attack us. Why? Because we took a side. So we knew they were going to start trouble, and Iran was going to respond, and it could impact us.
And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps.
So if we didn't preemptively strike Iran, we had a potential to lose American soldiers because Israel was going to go, and that's it. So it was never thought to tell Israel no. The thought was, okay, well, I guess we got to bomb Iran. They're going in anyway. Ah, shucks. That is not an imminent threat. At that point, Israel was the imminent threat to the United States because they were going to do something that would cause American lives to be lost. Hence my thumbnail about imminent threat. Because according to our government now, imminent means eventually, at some point, it's possible. They have the capabilities? No, but we know they want to. So eventually. This is insane.
Perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act. But it was the right decision and an important decision for the safety and security of the world.
So here you go. You join the army at 18.
This is his accolades. This is what set the political world on fire. He went to Tucker, who everyone hates, who I happen to think is the greatest, but most people in politics hate this guy. If you're on the left, you're on the right, they hate him.
18, yeah.
You spend your whole young life there. Go to all these wars, 11 deployments. You spend 5 years in Iraq, over 7 deployments, and you reach a series of conclusions, fighting and being shot at by Iranian proxies, and now you say, I don't think this war is good for America, and you're being slandered as a bad, unpatriotic quitter who secretly sympathizes with the Ayatollah.
We still don't know what happened in Butler. We don't know what happened with Charlie Kirk. And by no means am I saying, like, the Israelis did this or any of that, but I'm saying there's a lot of unanswered questions there. And there is enough data to at least say that there's a good chance that President Trump feels like he is under threat.
By no means am I saying Israel did it. This is a perfectly logical assertion. This is the definition of we need to ask these questions because it tracks. That's what he's saying.
We're not allowed to ask, basically, was there any linkage between what took place with Asif Merchant, who was recruited by the Iranians to come to America to recruit proxies to kill President Trump. The FBI put a confidential human source at him. All this is public now. This is all out there in the open. And he's arrested. And then 2 days later,
a sniper takes a shot at President Trump. We think Merchant and we know the CHS was talking about the human source that the FBI put at Merchant. They were talking about, hey, we could kill the president potentially with a sniper rifle. But then they arrest him. 2 days later, Butler happens. And Crooks, according to the official narrative anyways, is an enigma. We don't know anything about him. We can't get into his devices. If we did get into his devices, maybe there's nothing there. No more questions are allowed to be asked about Thomas Crooks. The DHS IG is currently being blocked from investigating Butler as well. That's out in the media. That's all well known. Your investigative journalist found that Crooks did indeed have an online persona,
quite an
online
extensive
footprint,
one.
and he was talking
Yes.
to people. So
Yes.
it's like, why aren't we investigating this? You know, I mean, if
an attempted murder of a presidential
attempted
candidate?
murder of a presidential candidate, and then there's another assassination attempt. There's been multiple public breaches of President Trump's security over the last year.
Everything he's saying sounds pretty logical to me. Sounds measured. Sounds fair. But he's being smeared as a white supremacist for saying these things that he's saying. It's like, what? What would make Ben Shapiro even bring that up? What would do that? You want to know what? They want black people, they want us to look at it and ignore this story. We got to ignore this story. This is not good. This guy's a white supremacist. I can't even watch this racist piece of. It's just no. I'm not watching. He's another one. Another one of them racists. So now you just cordoned off a third of this country, and you have the left who already hates him, and now you just minimize how many people are going to listen to this guy speak. Because it's perfectly logical. There's nothing wrong with what he's saying.
And then, Charlie Kirk is killed publicly in a very horrific way, and we're not really even allowed to look into that at all. And Charlie Kirk was one of President Trump's closest advisors, and he also advocated heavily against a war with Iran. He was in the Oval Office in the lead up to the 12-day war. I wasn't particularly close with Charlie. He was very gracious to me when I was running for Congress, very, very supportive. So we knew each other. And the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing, in the stairway, and I said hi to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he said very loudly, and you've been in the West Wing, it's small, it's a tight space, and he said, "Joe, stop us from getting into a war with Iran."
Now, when you hear something like this, that means there's other people around who can verify it. So if he's just lying, somebody can easily come out and say he's lying. They're not. They're diminishing him as a man. They're sending a bunch of influencers out. Oh yeah, no, I didn't do one on that. I talked about it. GWB asked if I covered the video on Thomas Crooks, who was the kid who took a shot at Trump and hit him in the ear, and how crazy that story was, because everything pointed at the fact that he was going to do what he ended up doing. He had a digital footprint, literally threatening nonstop on several different platforms. But the official narrative from our government was he doesn't have a digital footprint. We have no idea why he did this. And he is a lone gunman. It's always a lone gunman. They do that to scare people off, or just to get them to not look into the person specifically. They don't want you looking, because then that leads to what's happening to Erica Kirk. Wait a minute, she has ties to the CIA? Really? She does have ties to Fort Huachuca? Really? So once you look into these people, it always tracks right back to the federal government, to the CIA, FBI, and all of our organizations. So what they do is say, no, we don't know who they were working with. They weren't working with anybody. They did it themselves. Lone gunman is always going to be the narrative. Whether it's JFK, MLK, RFK assassination, Ronald Reagan was shot. Who else besides Trump? Well, we don't need to go that far back. We can just say Trump, Kirk. It's always a lone gunman. Why? Does that make any sense? So what do? They bury a story that says that the bullet that was found is not, it's not from the rifle that they're saying it's from. You don't hear about that. Nobody knows about that. Nobody hears about that. But what they do say is it has to be him. Ironclad case. Don't talk about it. Yeah, he said it's wild that it took Tucker Carlson. Nobody on TV should have been saying that. That should have been Dan Bongino. He was at those trials. We need to figure out what's going on. As soon as he gets in office, nothing, not a word. Just him and Cash Patel can't, nothing. Hey, you guys have seen me ask, I won't say every live stream, but a lot of live streams I mentioned, hey, what happened with Trump getting shot again? Why do we still not know what happened there? And why is Tucker Carlson the only one who's able to get all this information on a guy? But our feds can't? Not only can they not, they openly said that he had no digital footprint. So, sorry, we don't have access. We couldn't get access to his phone or his devices. But that guy that I showed you guys, who said Epstein walked out the front door, remember what I showed you guys? The feds looked into every aspect of his life. They went to Apple and got access to his iPhone. They went to his phone company, got every text message he ever made. They went to all social media, got all of his social media. Then they got all of his banking records and found out where he worked. And then, oh crap, he actually worked for the prison, and he was working that day that he said he saw Epstein leave. But what's craziest about that story is that he made an anonymous post on, I think it was 8chan or 4chan, where anyone can literally jump on there and post completely anonymous. They tracked everything down. They could do all that, but they couldn't find out about a guy who literally shot our president. And anyone who believes the stories that they say and doesn't second guess, something's wrong. You got to stop. But right now, for whatever reason, and I'm on the right, I'm to the right of most of these people, the right is now promoting all of the federal narratives, every one of them. And that used to be the left.
Very loudly.
He was single-minded.
And he walked off and he went, I believe, into the Oval. So when one of President Trump's closest advisors, who is vocally advocating for us to not go to war with Iran and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis, and then he's suddenly publicly assassinated, and we're not allowed to ask any questions about that.
It's the motive. It's the first people you should be asking about. And it's really funny because when Netanyahu just ran out and said, I didn't kill him, he suggested that the Qatari government did it, or Iran did it. But it's not that Charlie was on their side. He was advocating to keep them out of a war. So why would they do that? You actually have to look at the people who have motive. And the whole Charlie Kirk thing, and there's people are complaining, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's talking to Erica Kirk. What's the motive? Money, power. She immediately took his role. She always wanted to be famous. She was on several reality TV shows. She was in Miss Universe or Miss America, one of those beauty pageants. She always wanted to be the spotlight. And not only that, she's got a lot of government ties. A lot. Her mom, all government contracts. She's made millions off of government contracts. There's motive. How about we just track down, okay, maybe there's nothing there. That's fine. Doesn't have to be something there, but there's potential. Look into it. Nobody looks into anything. Candace Owens looks into it. They call her a stalker and they call her crazy and insane. It's like, all right, well. So you guys don't believe in motive. I posted a thing the other day that said 50% of all unalivings of a spouse is somebody that they know, whether it's their spouse or family or friends. And so many people jumped on it, and I knew they were going to do this because I set them all up. So many people jumped, well, that leaves half of the people that aren't related. And I said, yeah, so we're in the same boat. But you guys are calling me crazy for questioning. It's literally 50-50. I'm smarter than them, so they still didn't understand what I was saying. Yeah, but you posted this like it's a flex. It's not a flex. I'm just telling you, you're just as crazy for thinking that it's not somebody related as I am for thinking that it's somebody that is. It's 50-50. Sorry.
It's a data point. It's a data point that we need to look into.
What do you mean when you say we're not allowed to ask any questions about that?
We've been told that this individual,
this is
Robinson, is a lone gunman, and maybe he is. But the investigation that I was a part of, the National Counterterrorism Center was a part of, we were stopped from continuing to investigate. And the FBI will say that they stopped that because they wanted to turn everything over to the Utah state authorities. Everything's going to trial. It's very, very sensitive. But there was still a lot for us to look into that I can't really get into. But there was still linkage for us to investigate that we needed to run down. I'm not making any conclusions. I'm not saying
No, I don't think you will.
because of this happened. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there's unanswered questions. We know the pressure because of the text messages that have been made public that Charlie was under a lot of pressure from a lot of pro-Israel donors. And again, we know Charlie was advocating to President Trump against this war with Iran. And we knew at the end of the 12-day war, at the end of Midnight Hammer, that the Israelis were going to come back and ask us to go back to war again.
Right.
So we have a lot of data points between Butler, the assassination attempts against President Trump, the breaches of his security, what happened to Charlie Kirk.
Can I just ask you to pause on the Charlie Kirk?
Before you even get to that, it's even crazier than this. GW said, I thought I read somewhere that she hired an ex-boyfriend to a 20-point position. Not only, this is how crazy it is. She was dating this guy. His name is Cabot Phillips. And that's the boyfriend right before Charlie Kirk, like literally 2 months before Charlie Kirk. Right? He's the one with pizza tattooed on the inside of his lip. Anyone who knows anything about politics knows that that would be absolutely insane to tattoo pizza anywhere on your body. If you don't understand, that's fine. I'm not going to go into that. But he has this pizza tattooed on his lip. She was not partners with, but she was running charities with two. One person was charged with human trafficking of minor girls in Romania. The other one is still being accused, and he's got 22 lawsuits against him right now. Exactly, GW. The other one is going through these lawsuits. So there's this weird thing because she's currently on tour with one of the guys who's got 20 accusations against him, and he's a pastor. Of course, it's always ironic when it comes to Erica Kirk. But this boyfriend, as soon as Charlie passed away, I think it was 2 to 3 weeks after Charlie passed away, she hires her ex-boyfriend, who she was with for a couple of years, not just to work at TPUSA, but to speak on how to be more like Charlie. If you look this up, you're going to be like, there's no way. That alone would have me like, all right, this is beyond suspicious. But there's so much more with this chick. She's lied about everything her entire life. And anyone, if I passed away and my wife hired her ex, first of all, it's like, you guys were still close like that? But on top of that, he worked for Daily Wire. He still works for Daily Wire. So he's working for Charlie Kirk's enemy. He works for Daily Wire, which is run by Ben Shapiro, who's hated Charlie Kirk this entire time. Now he's pretending to be a hero and he's trying to protect Erica Kirk. But she hired one of Ben Shapiro's employees to teach people to be more like her dead husband. It's wild. There's too much to even go over all over again. It is beyond bizarre, man. It is beyond bizarre.
Yeah, because it upsets me to hear what you're saying, to be reminded that he was murdered, but also to hear you confirm what was reported in the media several months ago, that your office had been blocked from investigating his murder. That does not make sense to me. I don't understand why you would ever turn down help in an investigation from a U.S. agency with a lot of experience in gathering intelligence on things. That's your job.
The FBI will say, and the DOJ will say, that because it's an ongoing case, it's a Utah state case, that back off, they've got it. They've got a smoking case. They've got the fingerprints on the gun, and they've got the kid.
But the FBI was involved in the case.
The FBI was involved. The FBI's basically said that they're deferring to Utah because it's now a state case.
They've established.
Hey, feds, who found the gun? They were searching all day, the entire area. They combed the area. They had dogs. You know, the bomb sniffing dogs, they can also smell fired weapons. They could smell everything, right? You just got to direct them to the scent. They had couldn't find anything. The FBI got there, and within, I think it was like 10 minutes, they found the gun. They immediately just swooped in immediately found a gun, and then passed the case back over to Utah. Is that strange? Is that likely? Kash Patel had a better percentage of catching or finding this weapon than the dogs, and that's all they do. They're extremely accurate. They couldn't find it, but Kash Patel went right to an area that they had already went past, by the way. Oh, there it is. Here you go. There's the gun. It's in a towel. Maybe that's why the dogs didn't smell it. The whole story is fake. And it's so obvious if you just look. I can give you like 3 details, and that should be more than enough for anyone to say, all right, yeah, they really need to look into this. But that one right there, they turned it over to Utah because they have the gun and fingerprints. Who found the gun? The feds. Okay, so then they are involved. Now we got to give it back to the locals. Let them handle it. Yeah, I mean, you could look at any movie and know that doesn't happen. The feds always take over. They're the ones with the 90% or 90+% conviction rate. Why would you give it back to locals? You don't even know these people.
Precedent for federal investigation of this crime.
Yeah, and the National Counterterrorism Center's mandate is to investigate any foreign ties, to see if there's potentially any foreign ties. If we don't find any foreign ties, we back off. What I'm saying, without getting into too much detail, is there was more for us to investigate.
You believe there was reason to investigate foreign ties to Charlie Kirk's murder, and were told by the FBI, DOJ?
FBI and DOJ, yeah.
No, you're not allowed to investigate that.
Stop. It's done. They basically cut off our access to be able to get into that information. And look, I didn't even say necessarily that I believe there's 100% foreign ties. There were data points that we needed to investigate. I mean, I think anybody who's even looked at any kind of police investigation, you get 100 leads, you run them down, and 99 don't mean anything. We still had.
And this is what people don't seem to understand about Candace Owens. Just because she's asking questions and looking into stuff doesn't mean that that's her theory. And she's accusing this person. She's accusing. No, she's not. She's doing exactly what he just said. You get 100 leads. You run them all down. Most of them end up not being anything. And he still, after this conscientious objection, after Trump called him weak, after all these people are smearing, he still said, I'm not even saying that there's anything there. I'm just saying we should be looking into it. And that's too much for them. They can't handle it. They're having aneurysms over this. Oh, yeah. Text messages to his furry boyfriend about the gun was ridiculous. It wasn't just ridiculous. It laid out a perfect case against him. So he was able to pull this thing off, right? Without anybody, including the supposed boyfriend. He didn't even know he was going to do it. No one knew anything. So, and he said his goal was to do this and come back home and never tell anybody. But then he tells this guy everything in text, everything. Sorry to let you know I did this. This is how I did it. The gun that I use is my grandfather's gun that traces back to before serial numbers. So they're not going to be able to detect it. But I have it. I set it down in some woods in a towel. I don't know why, but I set it down and now I'm looking at it and it doesn't look like they're going to find it. I'm going to go back and pick it up. Okay, why didn't you just take it with you to begin with? Nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense. The whole story is BS. He gives essentially a complete confession of everything, step by step, including motive, including how long it took him to get there, including, I know you didn't know anything and you didn't have anything to do with this, but I had to do it. He was so full of hate. So this huge plot and positioning, and he had to know exactly where Charlie Kirk was going to be positioned to shoot from where they say he shot from, because 2 feet over, he would have had no shot. But he'd never been up there before. It's all dumb. And anyone who believes it, I'm not going to call them dumb. I'm just going to say they're willfully ignorant, because you're just not going to look into it, because you don't want to be called a conspiracy theorist. And that's why they do it. That's why they throw those labels out. They scare people into not wanting more information.
A lot more leads to run down that pertain to some kind of a foreign nexus that we were stopped from investigating. And,
that just strikes me as inconceivable that could happen. And again,
crazy.
I was aware of it from reading about it, but not really to the extent that you've just described. So I would love to hear the justification for that. And can you flesh that out a little bit more? What were you told was the reason to prevent you, as a federal intelligence official running the National Counterterrorism Center, from looking into the murder when you had reason to look into it?
Well, the way the bureaucracy works is they can just kill things in process. So initially we were cut off pretty early on from being able to access like the files and to being able to, send people out there. We sent people out initially to work in the task force. After the crisis period, the first week or so, that dispersed, and we basically were told that, hey, we'll get back to you if we find any kind of foreign ties, et cetera, that we want you guys to look into. Meanwhile, we had already dug up a decent amount of leads. Again, I'm not saying that we had anything concrete, but we found more work that we needed to do to say that we had done our due diligence. We were then told that, hey, you guys need to stop. You can't work on this anymore. I had a bureaucratic dispute about it.
What's crazy about this is he's still being perfectly logical and neutral. He's saying, I'm not saying we're going to find it, but we did dig up some stuff that was worth looking at. So we can say we did our due diligence. Yeah, those texts were just dumb. They were clearly a script. But it's so weird to see so many people online dismissing everything and saying they got him. But if you say maybe they didn't, they say, oh, you're tainting the jury pool. They can convict a man publicly. In the United States of America, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But so they keep saying, nope, they got him. Ironclad case. No, it's open and shut. They got him. He's guilty. He did it. Charlie Kirk's murderer. It's like, wait a minute. You're not tainting the jury pool by doing this? It only works one way for them. I don't know why they keep doing it. They're going to ruin the case. Well, what if he didn't do it? Doesn't matter. He needs to burn.
But eventually we were allowed to continue to investigate. But then in very short order, all the requests that we would make that normally different parts of the interagency with the FBI being on point would facilitate data share. Data sharing is a big thing that NCTC does. Those requests were just never met, or in my opinion, not an honest effort was given to fulfill those requests. Just basic information.
So they watched this interview, and within an hour, they had a full narrative. They said he was under investigation, so they blocked him out of all the real talks of what's going on. So he's not privy to the information that we're privy to. We know what's going on. He doesn't know because he's a traitor. He was under investigation. He was going to probably be fired, maybe even arrested, just so you guys know. And they waited until he did the interview, listened to his words. He said, I wasn't privy, or I wasn't on this meeting or that meeting. Then they could say, oh, well, yeah, now we can explain that by saying that we were investigating. So we didn't want him near because he's a leaker. He's a traitor. It's disgusting what they're doing. It really is.
Information that any competent police service, which I believe Utah has, and the FBI, that they would have access to help us run down the leads to either confirm or deny some kind of foreign activity. So we were cut off from that. They didn't ever officially come back and say, you can't look at this anymore. All of the requests just continued to die on the vine with the various agencies that needed to actually fulfill those requests.
I just can't imagine a legitimate justification for that. I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but from a non-specialist perspective, something horrible has happened. The U.S. government, its core function is to investigate crime, particularly murder. Here you have an agency whose job it is to run down the rabbit trails you've described, and you're stopped from doing that. We don't want the information.
Right.
Why would any person engaged in a legitimate pursuit say, I don't want more information?
I mean, especially considering there was people posting online prior knowledge of what was about to happen. So a lot of the justification for stopping us from investigating hung on, hey, we've got the guy, his fingerprints are on the gun. We got video of him jumping off the roof. Like, this is a slam dunk case. Okay, even if it is a slam dunk case that he took the shot, what about all the people who had prior knowledge? All just the basic investigative questions. How do you get there? You map it out. Nothing. This isn't rocket science. I mean, this is anything that anyone with common sense would know to ask. But basically, once they caught him, once he turned himself in and his fingerprints were on the gun, it was basically pencils down. Utah has the rest of it. There's nothing else to see here. And, I'm over there thinking I'm in crazy town saying, like, no, we have all these different leads that we need to run down. Just from my perspective. Now, the people who had prior knowledge, I believe most of them were American citizens, so that would be on the FBI to go run down. But again, not without saying anything specific, there was more work for us to do on the potential of a foreign nexus. Again, not saying there is one, but we had more work to do, and we were blocked from doing that.
I can't.
He's being so careful by saying, I'm not saying this would have led to anything. He's being so careful that it's impossible to assume that he's a conspiracy theorist. That's not what we do. I'm a conspiracy theorist. That's not what we do. We make definitive statements. I think Erica Kirk has something to do with this. That's what we do. That's not what he's doing. You don't see him doing that. He's clearly not doing that. Oh yeah, So turned out that the old man was not part of those old other events that happened, but he did say that he was paid to say what he said. And what GWB is talking about, there was an old guy named Zinn. I think it was George Zinn. I believe it was George Zinn. And George Zinn said that he did it immediately. As soon as the shooting happened, this guy stood up. I think he pulled his pants down and said, I did it. I arrest me. I did it. Clearly a distraction. They arrest him, take him in, find out he's just crazy old man. But he did tell the authorities that he was paid to say that and he wanted his money. What do? Arrest him for child images and videos on his computer, on his phone, or wherever. Best way to not have anyone want to talk to him, but even worse, to not have anyone able to talk to him. Oh, he's an Epstein type. Nobody wants to talk to him now. I still want to ask him, hey, you said somebody paid you. Is that true? But I mean, it was in the police report. That's what he said. And now he's gone forever and he's an old man. And that's it. That's the end of it. I guess we're just supposed to completely act like that didn't happen. And then there was another guy, the day of the shooting, I went live. The next day, I had showed video of a guy who was pulled over. I think it was in a Toyota. It was a small car, but they pulled a rifle out of his car. And he was arrested on camera. People were saying anything. I haven't seen anything about that since. But apparently, and I got this from a guy named Baron Coleman. He watches he has a YouTube channel, big YouTube channel, and he really digs deep. But apparently that guy that I remember seeing, and it's on my live stream, I'm not just making this up. The guy that I remember seeing being arrested, who had a rifle in his car, apparently was going from hospital to hospital asking if Charlie Kirk was there. Some armed crazy man is just going looking for where Charlie Kirk was. To finish the job, to protect him. I don't know what, but never heard anything about that until Baron Coleman brought it up. And you know how he brought it up? He pulled up all of the police scanners from that day. So every lead, every police report, everything that they chatted about on the radios, he played it because it's public record, it's audio. And they said this guy was going around from hospital to hospital looking for where Charlie Kirk was. And he's reported to have a rifle. And sure enough, they pulled the guy over and he had a rifle. Wild stuff. So it wasn't just George Zinn. It was that guy too. What was he doing? Why did he feel the need to go find Charlie Kirk with a rifle? Again, maybe he's crazy. Maybe he thought he could protect him. I don't believe that, but the possibility is there.
My heart is pounding listening to this. I mean, I just would want people listening to this to assess two things. One, are you over your skis? Are you making claims you can't prove? No. Two, is there any conceivable motive, dark motive, that you would have for wanting to know more about this murder, to wanting to investigate it? And I don't think any rational person could construct a bad motive for wanting to know. It's your job.
Yeah.
It's the government's job. And so I think the onus is on people who are preventing the collection of information to describe why they're doing that. That's the question for them. Why wouldn't you want to know? Mm-hmm. Specifically, you may not know the answer, of the people who demonstrated prior knowledge of Charlie Kirk's murder online, and there were a number of them, are you satisfied that all of them were interviewed by the FBI in person?
I have no idea. I don't know. I just think, considering they knew Charlie was going to be assassinated, and there was enough of them that it wasn't just some rando, maybe he tags every TPUSA post with that. There was enough of them that there's something there. I don't know what that something is.
Well, by definition.
But we haven't seen any arrests. So to me, there's more work to be done. And because that could have been posted from anywhere, that would be in the purview of the FBI or NCTC, or if they're overseas. And to me, I personally did not see any effort being taken to continue to run that down. Now, I'm sure they will say, hey, we're open to anything. We'll continue to investigate. But,
seen them say that.
We're coming up on several months now. Why hasn't this been done?
Are you bothered by it?
I'm very bothered by it. I'm very bothered by it. Like I personally did not know Charlie well, but Charlie Kirk is a generational figure. I mean, he led a movement. He was speaking to millions of young Americans who came out and who voted for President Trump. And he was just a genuine great man, husband, father. I mean, how can you not like Charlie Kirk? But also the fact that he was murdered so publicly. And yes, there's been a lot of sympathy, and his movement has grown, et cetera. But actual curiosity about getting to justice, to figuring out what happened.
And that's a big thing that people have a problem with Erica Kirk and TPUSA. They seem to just be like, okay, well, they got him. Let's move along. Move along. There's nothing to see here. It's like that old South Park police officer. That's what they're doing. It's like, well, that's it. You're good with this. You're just accepting what they're telling you. Lone gunman, furry boyfriend, drove all the way up 3-4 hours to do this thing. Wasn't going to tell anybody, but then told everybody. Like, they're just accepting it, and they won't ask any questions. They try to use the excuse of the gag order, but the gag order didn't come until way later. Way later. So it's just,
that makes me furious that we're being blocked from that, and that we're not allowed to ask the question anymore. We're just not allowed to talk about it anymore. And I think that's absolute insanity. And what does that mean? What does that mean that there are people and there's entities out there that don't want us looking into this? And I'm sure they're preparing the response right now, and they're saying that's because we don't want to screw up the Robinson trial. Like, okay, if the Robinson trial is so slam dunk, then don't worry about it. You know, he's got his fingerprints on the rifle, et cetera. But there was people publicly posting they had prior knowledge of this. And I'm here telling you, as someone who's involved in the investigation, there was more stones for us to overturn. And every time we asked, we were blocked. And then they, leaked to New York Times, and we had to blow up, and we had to throw them out of the room because they're crazy, et cetera. So it's incredibly frustrating that there's not more, especially considering how pivotal Charlie was to the MAGA movement and to President Trump, that there hasn't been a more concerted effort to find the truth and to find justice.
Do you think there will be?
I pray there is. I hope this helps. I know, you and I will probably take some flack for it.
I don't know why, and I doubt it'll be. Yeah, it's at a certain point. I've really tried not to say anything about it because I don't know the answers, but I want them to be found because I believe in justice and because I love Charlie. And but I think everything you have said, may be dismissed as crazy or evil. But tell me how. Right. With reference to the words you've just spoken, I don't see how someone could level a legitimate attack on you and won't stop them. You mentioned the breaches of the president's security that have been reported. One that was reported, and I can't say whether it's true. I'm only asking to see if you know that it is true. But it's been reported that Prime Minister Netanyahu's security detail was caught twice by Secret Service attaching some kind of device to the president's Secret Service emergency response vehicle.
I didn't know that.
Have you heard that?
I've read it in the media. I don't know if that's true.
Okay.
I think the president and the vice president and several members of the cabinet going out to dinner in D.C. and the Code Pink protesters having a heads up about that to rent the table.
Wild.
And that's hard to do. They had to figure out where they rent the table. They had to kind of get the restaurant on board to a certain extent. To me, that's kind of almost like counting coup. It's a soft flex. It's a I can touch you whenever I want. It was Code Pink. They weren't going to do anything. We know they're just going to be kind of crazy and annoying. However, what does that mean? It means you've got real problems with your security detail. And then, a few weeks later, you have an armed police officer who's off duty, who's not part of the president's detail, come right up and shake the president's hand.
That's wild.
And the guy's probably patriotic American, whatever. He probably just wanted to shake the president's hand legitimately. But that got a lot of publicity.
But even that, he's still neutral. He's saying, hey, he's probably a patriot, but how does a guy who's armed get that close to the president? You don't know his motives until it's too late. So they found out, he's just a normal guy who wanted to shake the president's hand, but he was armed. It's pretty important that he can get that close.
And what does that mean? And the president, again, President Trump is very smart. I think President Trump has a gift for interpreting large sets of data.
Yes.
And making very, very key strategic decisions. And so when the president sees that he's got issues with his own security detail, when he sees what happened in Butler with the other assassination attempts, when he sees what happened with Charlie, I think it's reasonable to believe that somewhere in his head, he thinks that, maybe I don't have a choice. Maybe they could harm me or they could harm my family. And if they can't keep me safe, I believe the president deeply cares. I believe he's very courageous. I think if it was just a matter of he worried about his own physical safety, I don't think he cares. We saw that in Butler. But he does love his family, and he's got a big family. And so somewhere in his head, if they can't keep me safe, what about my family? So look, maybe the president was just simply deceived by the echo chamber we described, and that's how we got to this place. But it's also, there's a potential that there's an element of coercion, intimidation, whatever words you want to use there, that is also influencing his decision-making.
Wild. I mean, it can be seen as a threat. How would Code Pink have any knowledge whatsoever of the president stopping somewhere for lunch? It's not possible. It's not. What they put on his calendar is specific locations, unless they had every Code Pink person at every restaurant, assuming that the president would even stop somewhere for lunch. There's no way they should have known that, and they should. It's impossible that they would be able to reserve the table next to where he's going to sit. It's not possible. That's so dangerous. That's something similar happened to Obama, and I was like, how? Like, I don't understand how this is possible. They had some crazy person who was an interpreter, and she's just signing away, doing all the sign language, completely fake. But she's on stage with the president of the United States, and that whole time I'm yelling like, "How? What are we doing? How do they not vet the person who's going to be standing on stage with him? Literally threaten the president of the United States." They had no idea. She's just working, boom, 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 doing all the. I'm like, and then when you go back and look, it's clearly obvious that she was faking it. But the security failed. Just because he lived and nothing happened doesn't mean they didn't fail. They failed. That's what it is. So I put my YouTube channel on there if you're watching on Rumble or Twitch. I put my Rumble channel if you guys, people here on YouTube. I'm gonna be I do art on Tuesdays and Thursdays on a different channel. So if you guys are interested in portrait art, that's what I'm doing, and that's the channel. That's my art channel. I also simulcast to TikTok while I'm doing my art. So those two are specifically just art, just drawing, no commentary, no nothing. Just if you're interested in techniques and drawing, that's all I do on there. I do talk about him, or I answer questions, but for the most part, that's not a channel like an information channel like this one. It's nothing like this one. If you want to learn how to troll, follow me on TikTok, or I'm sorry, on X. I already put it up there. It's a daily class on trolling, daily. You don't even have to ask me any questions. You can just watch what I'm doing, and you can learn so much. If you would like to support the channel, this is my Cash App. Other than that, that's all I got for you guys today. I appreciate everyone. Always. GWB, appreciate you. Not worth it, always appreciate you. Who else was in here? Phoenix Rising, thank you so much. Uncle L, always. Oh, troll, yes, absolutely. Elite trolling, I can teach you guys a thing or two. Lou Jenkins, thank you, sir. Ms. Baker, thank you for stopping by. Uncle L, I think I already said Uncle L. KTC, thank you so much. Bad Guy, thank you. Amber C, all you guys are awesome. But yeah, if you want to see elite trolling, I'm everywhere, dude. Twitch too. You want to follow me on Twitch? You want to follow me on Twitch? I'm telling you, dude, I'm everywhere. I'm everywhere. Simulcasting everywhere. I separated everything. I'm a little bit more advanced than you think. A little bit more. That's why I was laughing when it happened. I'm like, no, that's not true. But you never know. With the art thing, it's true because I'm not. Therapy for me. It's therapy for me. I'm drawing. My father passed away. That's what I'm doing. I'm drawing him. It's actually getting really, really good. Like I'm usually not thrilled about my work until I'm done, because I just sit there and I don't know. But where that drawing is coming along, it's really, really getting good, even for me, which means it's good because I'm very, very overly critical. Even when I see something and I kind of like it, I find reasons to not like it. The where I'm at right now with my father's drawing is crazy, because I'm looking at it right now and I'm really, 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 really happy with it right now. Really happy with it. So it's therapy for me. But yeah, man, I've been doing this. I'm just over here in my corner, man. Just over here in my corner. Not worth it. The X trolling is different, but you'll see. I wonder if you could see how many people have blocked you, because I don't block people. Trolls aren't supposed to block. Just so you know, trolls should never block somebody, because you're letting the other person know that you got to them, and that should never, ever, 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 ever happen. And on X, people seem to know that rule more. So all the people who really hate me know they can't block me and they just have to deal with me. It's great. Oh, it's so great. I appreciate everyone. Thank you guys so much. I came in with no intro. I had a weird issue. YouTube was creating 5 lives or 4 lives. It was double doing it, so I had to leave and come back. And then it wasn't broadcasting. It was very, very strange. What's up, Mel? So that's why there's no intro or anything. I just started the live. But it's actually good because I started chopping off the beginning of all my lives anyway, because they say within the first 30 seconds, if you have people come in and leave, it's not good for your numbers. So I started chopping off the beginnings anyway. I'm telling you, man, I've been doing my research. I really have. You're not a troll, believe it or not. Oh, man. If you want to learn, that's what I do. But I appreciate you all. I thank you all. Support, support, support. Later.